Welcome to Wilson's channel.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to another podcast episode. This is Chat with Wilson, episode 28, featuring our friend here, Michael, aka yerppyderppy. How's it going?
I am so nervous right now. I was looking forward to doing this, and then about like 10 minutes before, I think it started sinking in with me. But I
Yeah,
think, after some time, it'll sit down. Nerves will sit down, especially because I'm looking
yes.
at someone cute right now, right? Am I right, chat?
The mirror. Yes, I see you have a mirror planned and prepared. All right. No, I understand. Like, whenever I'm a guest on people's streams, like in the past, I've always been like pretty anxious and nervous. I get that, and a lot of my guests have mentioned that that's how it is. So it'll go away. We're just two people just talking about life, you know.
Yeah.
All right. So feel free to start us off by introducing yourself and just tell a little about yourself, maybe some interests.
Sure. So yeah, as Wilson mentioned, my Twitch name it's yerppyderppy. My real life name is Michael. Wilson, you can call me yours. Kidding. A quick background on myself as a person. So where do I start? Um, I would say graduated from college almost 10 years ago. Okay, I can say almost and it just make myself sound old. But yeah, so I went to college. I got my degree in psychology. I took 2 gap years. I worked at a boba shop for a little bit, got some customer service experience. But also on the side, I was working in a research lab, in a psychology research lab specifically. And during those 2 years, I was just kind of building my skills to prepare myself just to attend graduate school because I knew that's where my educational plans were going to be. I applied, I was accepted into a program. I graduated in 2 years. And not to brag about this, but I know I had a small cohort, but I was the only one who finished on time, which was pretty shocking. And I have been working uh, since then after graduation. And for my employment, I work as I'm basically a data analyst, but also a program manager. And quick background on that, I manage so many different grant funded programs, grant funded like from the government, like SAMHSA, which is Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administration, and there's HRSA, which is Health Resource Service Administration. I manage so many different things. I also work on reports, work with team members just to meet these frequent deadlines. That's my current role. As for work, free time, I enjoy cooking a whole lot. I have a food Instagram page. Actually, I've been on that page for so many years. Like whether it's just like a picture or a video of me cooking or whatever it is, I just like post about it. And I'm actually approaching 10 years in a few weeks, which is a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, so um fun fact about that too, I actually started my food Instagram page on my birthday. So that kind of implies too my birthday's coming up in a few weeks. So 10 years there and another 10 years into my life added there. Other things I do, my free time, I recently picked up Spin Cycle. I started it in late July and I've been consistent with it since. So kind of going back to, I can't remember if I mentioned earlier if I said if I was tired. I got back from Spin Cycle class like 7 o'clock, and my body has just been like cooling down since then. So that's why I'm like tired, but I
Uh
also
huh.
have work to do. So it's been an eventful day, all to say.
Wow, okay. Spin cycle right before the pod. Now you're just like chillaxing, finally
Yeah,
settling.
yeah.
All right, so learned quite a lot about your work experience at least and what you went through for school, which is cool. We'll definitely touch base with that again, like in more detail. So more so about yourself specifically, how would you say you are as a person, like more introverted, extroverted? What do you think?
I come off as an extroverted, and interestingly enough, a lot of people will think I'm an extrovert, but I'm actually an introvert. I always say this as a fun fact too. So my Myers-Briggs letters, the 4 letters that a lot of people will know, I'm an ISTJ. I just don't know what the rest means. I just know the I because it means introvert. Um, but the full 5 letters actually is ISTJT. I do know I'm more of a thinker. I also do know, fun fact for that, for all the K-pop fans out there, NCT Dream came out with a song called ISTJ like in the past year, so it felt nice that they named the song after me.
So you're into K-pop too?
Yeah, into K-pop. I have listened to K-pop since 2009, 2008, somewhere there. So second generation, like all the typical K-pop groups you would know from back then, like Big Bang, Girls' Generation, BoA, 4 Minute, Shiny. I still listen to them to this day. I actually remember my first exposure to K-pop. It was interesting because, what was it? So, quick background, I do identify as Vietnamese American, and for all the Vietnamese people, y'all know what Paris by Night is. There was one show at Paris by Night I watched where they featured Korean singers, and I looked up one of them after, watched them for a little bit, kind of fell off, and then I got back into it a couple years later when I was playing Maple Story, and at that time, the K-pop singer BoA, she was doing a collaboration with Maple Story for her American debut. So since then, like I caught up with BoA and then I went down that rabbit hole of her own discography and then just kind of went down the other rabbit holes of other K-pop groups.
Since Gen 2 got into
Yeah.
that deep rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Paris by Night, yes. I'm sure a lot of families would know what that is.
I have to say a fun fact about that too. I've seen two Paris by Night shows live, and on one of the shows you can actually see me on in the filmed DVD.
Oh, okay. Did you download that episode or something? You just have it saved
No, it
somewhere?
was I think when it came out it was just on CD and then like my other families are watching it and then like we just found ourselves and we're like, oh there we are.
Hmm. Nice, very cool. So, more so introverted is what you're saying.
Yeah.
How else would you describe yourself, like your personality?
So yeah, that's it's I think it's such an interesting I'm not too sure if I'm using the right word, I can't remember, but the word conundrum came to my head because I really present myself as a extrovert. Like I'm wild and wacky. I have crackhead energy and I just do so many random stuff. Some of the people in chat who are here will definitely know that, especially Maple. Um, so I can easily talk to people. I always feel like I want to in like when I'm in a setting and I know there's so many people and we're all talking with each other. I know that sometimes it's hard to like try to talk to everybody. So if one person's talking and try to bounce back and forth with one another, I try to include other people who I notice that want to say something but they're not. So I try to like bring them into just to know that
Inclusive,
like
yeah.
they're be inclusive exactly. And in those situations, it's because I know how hard it is too. Because I know like I can be like that in some situations where like if I don't know anybody, how am I going to say something? So I get that, and I just want everybody to feel inclusive. Um, so that's I would say one person like crackhead energy. Okay, like at work, right? So when I used to work at my boba job, my shift lead at that time, she was actually talking about this in a group huddle at the end. So group huddle is we would work and then at the end you would kind of like review with each other like what went good, what went bad, what can we improve upon. So with the huddle, we were for this specific one, we were talking about kind of how our personality is like while we're working and how that's different from when we're outside of work. And my shift lead, she talked about how she's like, and then she went around to her, to our other team members, and then she didn't say anything about me, and I was like, "What about me?" And then these are her exact words. She's like, "For some reason, you're the exact same." Like,
Hmm.
so I just thought it was interesting because I guess my energy is just very prominent. I have been described as a character, I will say. And the reason why I say that too is because for work, I do work for a private university. I do work with like other institutions such as like UCLA, Department of Healthcare Services, and everybody is like formal. They have like the Zoom background that looks nice. I'm the only one with a Bob's Burger diner room background. Okay, and it's been such a conversation starter amongst everybody in the Zoom room. They always notice it. They always comment on it, and so yeah, I bring that type of energy.
Spark conversations with that. That's cool. Uh, You just chose that random background.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly. Because
okay.
I thought, I could be serious working in this job, but like, what's the it's boring, I feel like, when
Mm.
you're just working. So I guess I tried to make it fun. I do things like that. Heck, I've even changed my Zoom background to a picture of my boss's face, her headshot. So, but I also would say I think I'm lucky to be in this type of work environment where I can get away with things like that because I don't think I could any elsewhere.
Yeah. How long have you
And
been at your workplace for? Your current
yeah,
one?
currently I've been at my current workplace for about it's gonna be 3 years and 4 months now.
And would you say you like it overall since you've been there for a while?
So, where I work right now, as I mentioned earlier, I work at a private university. I was actually here for grad school for 2 years, and then so I was there 2 years as a student, and then now 3 years as a staff member. And in the beginning, I liked it, but I think just over time, just I'll touch upon it a little bit, but just because of like workplace politics involving promotion, pay raise, work overload, HR. It's kind of gone downhill since, so I have started looking for other opportunities out there. I submitted an application a while ago, but I do have a plan set for my mind of where I want to be within the next year or two.
Okay, nice. Planning ahead. All right, so that's like a little overview.
Yeah.
Just wanted to know what your personality was like. So interesting enough, crackhead energy. Okay.
Yeah, and I should add on that too. So I know I come off as an extrovert, and again, Maple, she knows. I come off as an extrovert, but in reality, the inner part of me, I am an introvert because there are times where I just feel like when I'm by myself and I'm just doing nothing, I'm not interacting with people, I just feel so refreshed. I don't have to exert as much social energy. When I hang out with friends too, like honestly, I hang out with my friends like once every month or two, just because like so the social interaction is just like thinking of what to say, spending time with each other for so many hours. It's like it drains me
Yeah.
immensely. And I do have this one friend I met from the master's program. We've connected since like I'm sorry, we stayed connected since like we finished the program. But I will say, to be honest, I love her, but her personality is so much. She We came to a conclusion of hanging out like once every 2 months. But she wants to
Jeez.
do once a month, and I'm like, oh hell no, 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 no. If we do that, I will hurt you. Like I will no. Like it's a lot, honestly. So I came to that conclusion. But yeah, there's just times where I just like being by myself. I do a lot of things by myself actually. Like um I take myself out on solo dates. I travel solo too. Um yeah, so that's the introvert side of me. I will say it happens a lot of times, but when I'm in social settings, I can be a total crackhead.
Yeah. So you can match people's energy, like if there's like a group setting, but you would prefer mostly to just like do things at your own comfort, like alone.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, best of both worlds it seems like, and I understand that certain like individuals, depending on their personalities, can drain you to a certain degree.
Hmm.
One once out of every 2 months, interesting. And this
Yeah.
is you would say a close friend.
It's a good friend. Yeah, we've been
Okay,
able to connect professionally, just talk about life with each other. I graduated from my master's program about 3 years ago, actually, so we've been friends since then.
3 years. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Oh, if I can go back to crackhead energy real quick, when
Hmm?
I get real creative with arts and crafts too. I'm very, very creative with Photoshop. Uh, but I should preface this to everybody. So Wilson, did you know we hung out a second time and we took a picture together, but you didn't know about it?
Are you talking about now?
Yeah, look at this.
What the hell? The Photoshop skills is crazy.
Yeah.
What the hell? Dude, that was like my picture from Escape too. That's funny. Did
Now
you
we're
make that
together.
just for this moment? That's so funny that you did that.
Exactly, I did. Yes.
All right. Crackhead energy. Okay, we're gonna go run it back to your childhood. All right.
Sure.
So let me know what was significant about your childhood. How was life growing up? So you could talk about like your family, the city you grew up in, just like maybe even the diversity, just like the background.
Yeah, so I will go back to the earliest that I can. I recall. I was live so just for to provide a background for everybody to know where I'm from. I'm from Southern California, specifically the San Gabriel Valley, if you guys know that. But I've always just defaulted to saying LA because people know where that is. So I am from the San Gabriel Valley area, and I remember my earliest memory is I woke up in bed, and then my parents took me to McDonald's, and I was just happy. And then we got home, and it made me take a nap, so I couldn't eat my McDonald's, so I was sad. That's the earliest memory I can remember. And at that time, we were living in our old house, and we were kind of in, I don't know how to call it, but it's one of those gated communities, but it's like a very small one where there's like just 5 or 6 houses, and they were all the same. I lived in that type of house. I
Gated
remember being there.
community? Just 5 to 6
Yeah,
houses? Wow.
yeah, like a very small one actually. I recall being there for about 7 years, and for where I went to school, so you know how like Asian families they tend to put their children into like after school programs or those weekend programs, you know, like just for extra education and all of that. Think of that, but make it into a school. That's what my parents put me in, and I was in that school for about, I want to say, up until sixth grade. Then I left. Uh, I transferred to a Christian middle school, ironically, because my family's Buddhist. But so I'll touch upon this like just pretty briefly.
Yeah.
Uh, we made the switch. Well, my parents think they made a switch for financially cheaper reasons, but quite honestly, um, there was influence a little bit outside. When I say influence outside, it was a family friend tutor. She helped kind of influence that decision because she knew that at that school that I was at, I was facing bullying basically. So it was a move. My parents thought it was more financial, but it was really more so just to help me put me in a better environment and just away from all of that. So that was my middle school life. I will say for those 2 years, I learned stuff from the Bible, which was interesting as a Buddhist. I remember one day I accidentally said I was an atheist, though. It was so
Got
interesting.
a
But
little reaction from that?
I just told it to two classmates. And they just looked at me and they're like, "What are you gonna do? They're gonna make you study the Bible." I'm like, "I don't know." So that was up until high school, and then in high school I went to a public high school. I was involved with tennis club, key club. Interestingly, I say tennis club because our school did not have tennis courts, so we had a tennis club. That was uh, high school, and then so that was the educational part. But bringing it back to family, no, I remembered back then. Um, So I think this was maybe in the 1990s. So my family, they all immigrated from Vietnam. Uh, they were refugees basically because of the Vietnam War.
Hmm.
They stayed in a which camp? Refugee camp. I was about to say the wrong camp. Oh my goodness. They stayed in refugee camp and then they immigrated here. And at one point when they all came here, so it was my grandma and my grandpa and including my dad, they had 13 kids and they all live
Jeez.
together in the house. Yeah, I know, right? Big family. I have so many cousins. So they all lived in that house, and then everybody started kind of eventually just growing their own family, moving out. And so I remember back then we were always having family gatherings with each other. There was always parties. Actually thinking about this back with my extrovertedness, I remembered uh, as a kid, I had a lot of energy. Like I was one of those kids that was always like randomly everywhere, causing chaos. So it's been a recurring theme actually. But yeah, so I remember we always had family parties. We'd always see each other like very often. And then as we got older, we just um, the family grew. And when I say the family grew, like as of if I can count correctly, I have I believe 27 cousins, and that's just on my dad's side. So we would always see each other family parties. Unfortunately, we don't do family parties as much anymore, but every once in a while we'll still get to see each other, hang out. Like we're actually going to be doing Thanksgiving on Friday next week. But yeah, it's just an unfortunate kind of transition from our childhood to where we are now because we are all like older. Amongst my cousins and I'm and my sister, I'm actually the second oldest, and the youngest, I think she's like 13 or 14 now. No, 9 or 10 actually. Sorry, 9 or 10, somewhere there. So, most of my cousins are older, and unfortunately, because we're all working full time, we're all going to school. Some of us are attending school out of state, so it's harder for us to really see each other as often, except for the cousins that are still around. Because for my family, we have two furniture companies, and it's family run and it's split between the family. Some of my cousins work at one or the other, but the ones who don't, we're kind of like just doing our own thing. So that's why it's hard to schedule things, even have parties. But I know like one thing we do nowadays that we try to stay close together as a family is we do family vacations every year. I know like before we went to Las Vegas, we went to Thailand. A couple years ago, they went to Hawaii. Last year, we went on a cruise to the Bahamas, and then it's quite funny because I kind of ditched them to go back home because I did so many trips that year. That's another story. And then I did the Key West, and then there were some other years where we actually took so many cruises. Like we did a couple of them to Mexico, and we also did one in Alaska. So that's been in the past. But how it is now, we still have our family parties, not as often. We still do our family vacations at least once a year, and we have one upcoming soon too. So look excited for that one.
Wow, that's a lot of cousins. And do you happen to know why your family chose to move to Cali, like from
I
being
actually
refugees?
don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I do know, when they were in the refugee camp, they were in Hong Kong, and they were sponsored by, I don't know. I want to say it was one of those Christian churches, I believe.
Yeah.
They sponsored them to come over, and they actually came to Pennsylvania first. So somewhere on the East Coast. I don't remember where. I could ask them, but they are getting older, so they don't remember as much because it was so long ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they were sponsored to come over to Pennsylvania, and they were there for a bit, but then they settled down in Orange County, and as everybody in South County knows, Orange County is the capital of Vietnamese people.
And you've been there ever since, and all your cousins are there too.
So they weren't actually. So it was just my parents.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, no, my dad and his siblings and my grandparents. They were in Orange County, and then they moved up to where we currently are, which is the San Gabriel Valley area. Um, yeah, so that's where we all are now.
That's nice that you guys still keep in touch. Like everyone's living their own lives and are older, like you said. But like the family vacations, that must be hard to plan to actually include everyone, though, right? If you're saying
It's so hard
around
because
20 cousins on one
like
side at
think
least.
about this. Think about this. 27. It's just when I say 27, it's just the kids and I. We also have to consider the adults. So in total, the whole family
Yeah.
is like 40 something. And I will say one of the complications in trying to plan for a large group of people is we can plan things for ourselves, but that's just going to be a lot more work. So we do go through the with the route of a tour company.
Okay. So what was the relationship with your parents like back then versus now specifically?
I know for back then. So my dad and his siblings started the family company, and as mentioned earlier, there's two furniture companies. So they split in half, and so one half works at one, and the other half works at the other. And my mom was like the kind of traditional stay-at-home housewife. She would just take care of the house, take care of me, take me to school, and then my sister was born, and that's how we've grown up since from then to now. And I guess because my sister and I are older now. By the way, my sister and I we're 7 years apart from each other. We're basically in our adult life now. We're kind of just doing our own thing. And so with my parents, yeah, my mom is still a stay-at-home housewife, and then my
Yeah.
dad just works. His schedule is weird because he does work with international. I'm sorry, not international. He works with I'm sorry, it is international, but he works with people in other countries, specifically Asia. So then he works like really different hours. So like some hours he'll work in the office during the day and then he'll go home early, but then he'll be working at night. And that's just because like, nighttime for us is like morning for them. So that's just how it's been like for so long. So I would say in terms of like the relationship wise, like it was always us like seeing our mom more, like my sister and I, compared to seeing our dad as often, especially because like he would eat dinner at different times than we do. And like the traditional time that everybody would think of like, 6, 7 p.m. So that's kind of how it was.
Okay, and then you only have one sibling, one sister, 7 years apart.
Yeah, we're 7 years apart, only one sibling, younger sister, and it's kind of funny because going back to when I was talking about my other cousins, 27 cousins, a lot of the families, like the individual families, they'll have 3 kids at most. Except for my one uncle, he has 4 kids at most, but that's because first wife, 2 kids, second wife, 2 more kids. So each family, it's either 3 or 4 kids. I'm sorry, 2 or 3 kids.
What
But
was your dynamic
I'll
like with your sister?
dynamic. Like before I get into that, I will say so. 2 or 3 kids in each family. Wilson, you and I, how many kids in our future, right? I'm just kidding.
Quick
Um,
with it.
yeah. So, with my sister, I will say I think the age gap between us kind of plays a role in how we are because we have such different lives with each other. Um, and I do tend to notice this with like I think my other cousins too, and other people I know. The larger age gap kind of I don't want to say like separates us more, but it kind of does. Uh, we're just like how do I say it? We're just chill with each other. We don't really talk as much with each other, but it's like, oh, if we need something, then we'll contact the other people. We're not like emotionally close together. We're not like gonna say like, oh, I love you. But I mean, Wilson, I know you and I are emotionally close, so I'll say I love you. Another riz there.
Okay,
Um,
that's three. That's three today.
but yeah, so and also because yeah, so like I said, 7 years apart. So if I think about it, like when I was in high school, let's say like ninth grade, she'd be in second grade. And so my mom would take me to school, like because I was in high school, and then she would take my sister to her school because and we were just always doing different things. And then when she was in high school, I was in college, kind of doing my own thing. And then my sister also got involved with other activities. Like she was one of the students who was very active in like ASB, student council. I actually think she was ASB president now I think about it. Oh no, she was. I remember. 'Cause- so fun fact, she did graduate high school during the pandemic when it started. And I just remember she asked me to record a video of her doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and I just remember I was laughing at her. I know, big brother vibes, right? And then yeah, so we've just been doing our own thing. So I feel like because of like that age gap and us doing our own things, we weren't able to like really bond with each other as much. But like we if we talk to each other, we can talk to each other. That's I think that's how the relationship is like with us. But again, like I mentioned earlier, regardless, like if we need something from each other, we'll let each other know.
Yeah. So even today, that's how it's been. Okay,
Yeah.
makes sense though. 7 years of an age gap. And are you guys still living together too?
No, she actually moved out.
Oh, I see.
She moved out back in June, but she moved out because I think it was like a focus on for her because she's actually doing her master's program right now, but also working and also trying to do practicum experience for her master's program. I believe she's doing social work. I believe because I know she mentioned sociology before, and those two are different from each other.
Hmm.
Um, so just trying to build that experience, and I have been wanting to move out as well, just kind of be on my own. But I'm still here, and I move things, and I'm thinking of decorating my room too. So if I make the decorations, I spend all that money, and I move out. Like, wow, I wasted all that money. But you know what? I'm thinking of decorations in my room right now, and I could put a picture of you and us together. So
You have
let's
it
move
on your
forward.
phone.
Yeah, that too.
All right. So, how were you academically in school, and just like how were you focused on your either even sports clubs? How involved?
High school. So I would say, okay, I was a good student, I would say. But if you put it on the Asian standard, and I wasn't that great because there was some semesters where I mean, to be quite fair, I was taking hard classes like AP US history at one point, and that was difficult. But overall, I would say I was a good student in high school. I was able to get into college, and at my college they had this award that they gave. Basically, was to honor students who got into college with a GPA of 3.5 and above from high school, and I was like, okay. I didn't. They had a whole ceremony for that too, which I thought was interesting. And then in college, so I had the fortune of not having to work, and also being able to have my tuition and such covered by financial aid. So because of that, I really focused on just going to classes, working on like assignments, papers, and just having focus on that. So I was um, I was a good student overall in college too. I will say for my first quarter, I really slacked off, but after that, things changed, and I've improved since then. I was very focused on my academics. It wasn't until my second year that I got involved with clubs on campus because I went to one of those commuter schools, but essentially you go to class and then you just go home. For my second year, I joined a couple of clubs. I joined Circle K just for volunteer experience, and then the other one, I joined the Vietnamese Student Association called VSA for short, essentially. And it was kind of they call it a social cultural club. So I joined that, went to meetings, got to know people, meet some new friends. And then for the next 2 years in college after that, so my junior, senior year, I was involved actively with VSA. I was in leadership as well. But at the same time, like my education was still important to me because I really wanted to do well overall. At the end of graduation for college, I got so lucky, okay, because when you graduate undergrad, you get honors, and it depends on your GPA, and there's a specific range for it. It was like cum laude, magna cum laude, and summa cum laude. So when I graduated, my GPA was at like a 3.5 something, so I was gonna graduate with cum laude. But after my last semester, it actually brought me right over the range to 3.751. And because of that one part, I was able to bump myself to magna cum laude instead. So I would say I graduated
Nice.
high with honors. And so I've been taking advantage of that, putting that on my resume and CVs everywhere. Then took 2 years off uh, because I remember I graduated from undergrad, and I remember the week before graduation, I went to the department. I was a psychology major, by the way. I went to the psychology department, and I said, "Can I make an appointment with a counselor because I don't know what I want to do with my psychology degree?" So bad, so bad. I don't recommend anybody do that. Figure yourself out before you do anything like I did. But I think I got lucky that it worked out because I was able to reconnect with the professor. And she put me in her research lab, and I worked as a statistician in that research lab. Internship experience, essentially. I did that for 2 years, and then I used that experience to apply to grad school, and I was able to get into grad school because of that. And all the experiences I learned, I was able to apply that as well. When I applied for grad school, my degree, it's okay, sorry, it's gonna be a long name, fair warning. It's a Master's of Science in Research Psychology and Data Analysis, and then I opted for a concentration in data analytics. So it was a small cohort of about 7 people. It was a part-time role for me because I decided to do that as opposed to doing it full time, just because I wanted to take my time with the program and just slowly like get immerse myself in it, learn about all the experience. And what else from there? So it took 2 years. I mentioned this earlier too. I graduated. Okay, I know like I'm boasting myself, but I'm confident because I know it's true. I graduated at the top of my class with the 4.0 uh, in my program. I also was the only one who finished the program on time. So time frame to finish, everybody should have finished by summer. And part of the completion requirements for the program is you pass all your classes and also complete a thesis project. For the thesis project, it's basically conducting your own research study. And a lot of the cohort members and classmates, they weren't able to finish this in time. For me, like I was working, I was in school, so I was busy all the time. But I will say I had a very different experience with it too, because typically you just do one research project. I did four. My advisor was crazy, but I did four, and I still somehow finished in time. But I'll touch upon my research project too a little bit. So as I mentioned earlier, I like cooking a lot, and I really wanted to bridge that cooking and just I think social relationships too, because just kind of talking with people, getting to know them one another. Because also, I kind of want you to think about this too. Whenever you hang out with people, most of the time, like, do you hang out with them like in a one-on-one setting or a group setting? And when you are in those settings, like, are you having food with them? Are you having boba with them? Are you having drinks with them? It's things like that that interested me because I always viewed food as this thing that can be like a medium. That's the vehicle that drives a social conversation between people, and it can be used as that way to just kind of, I would say, develop and foster social relationships with one another. So I have an interest in social psychology. That's why I wanted to look at that. And my research project specifically focused on ethnic prejudice. It was my research project looked to see if liking of ethnic food can be a predictor of liking the respective ethnic group. So, for example, um, if you eat Chinese food but you've never met a Chinese person, because you like Chinese food, can that be a predictor of you liking Chinese people? And basically, from the research I did, I was able to show that it is a predictor. And the reason why it's a predictor is because of a variable. When I say variable, I mean a factor called perceived similarity. And perceived similarity just means, again, you perceive or you believe this person to be similar to you. And based on research and theory out there, when you perceive yourself to be similar to someone, you're more likely to give them a positive appraisal. So, Wilson, you and I, like, we're both Asian, and because I perceive you to be Asian, like, I have a more comfortability around you. We all know it's more than that. I'm just kidding again. Um, so it's things like that that was an interesting thing uh, to look at it from the research. And I did multiple steps in this research projects to just really ascertain that relationship. And I will say, as a fun fact, it was actually my advisor's idea on the title, which I'm kind of jealous about. But I mean, it was a good title. It was called "Eating Away Prejudice."
Wow.
But bringing it back to educational world, yeah, I would tying it all with the little bow. I'm very academically inclined to succeed, do well. I actually at one point thought I was going to go do a PhD program, but ever since working, I've just been so focused on that. PhD is just not on my timeline right now. Maybe down the line, but at the moment, I'm happy with where I'm at with my education.
And you said you graduated, but that research project. Well, how long ago was that? Because your memory is like very extensive still. You just remember the details of everything.
I graduated July 2021.
Okay, nice. Seems like you're passionate about that, and that's also very interesting to know the psychological and sociological aspects of it.
Yeah.
So that's a gist of like what you went through with school.
Mhm.
Take it back though, because you did mention like way back about going through like bullying and stuff.
Mhm.
What was your life like then? How did you kind of overcome it?
Um, so the bullying happened, I would say, from the at least I can recall it around elementary school, and then even though I transitioned to different schools and then went to high school, it just didn't stop until high school essentially. So what happened was like look, okay, I'm not skinny, I'm not hot like Wilson, I don't got muscles like Wilson, I'm not an ABB like Wilson.
Wow.
Um but yeah, I basically just got bullied for my appearance, and I was an outcast, didn't have friends. Everybody was pretty much against me, and so I was really sad. And I always like had feelings of there's always something bad that's gonna happen if I go to school the next day. I didn't want to go to school. I would always cry. Didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to be in that environment, and so that was why we changed to the Christian middle school. And it was better, but unfortunately, just there were still people who were just not nice, and they would just like mock me for whatever reason. I wasn't too sure why. Like I'm just minding my own business and doing my own thing, and then these people are just I I don't know, um but actually before I say anything about that, I've actually never have publicly said this. So trigger warning for people watching right now. If potentially triggering stuff, you need to leave the room. Go ahead and do so. If you want to pause the video, go ahead. I do remember I was pretty suicidal at that point, uh, and it was just never addressed because I just didn't know how to bring about it or say anything about it, and it just had been in my thoughts for so long. And I remember going to high school. I was like, okay, I'm finally free from that environment. I'm with like new people. It did persist a bit, not a whole lot, but the depression was just still there, unfortunately, and still the same thoughts too. And I remembered I had a random sleepover with my two cousins, and we were just talking about it. And I actually had brought that up for the first time ever. I never had told anybody up until that point. So it was a very dark time for me, unfortunately, back then. And then we were just talking it through, and obviously, like, just a one night conversation is not really going to solve the issue or the problem. But I would say that my mental health improved from there. And let's see, going and then continuing high school, it waned down over time. But I think what just really like tipped me off kind of again was okay. So we all remember in high school we have prom, senior prom, and all of that. I didn't go to prom. I didn't go to prom junior or senior year, and I remember senior year I thought about going, but the friends that I was hanging out with during lunchtime, it was actually really heartbreaking for me because they were all planning prom with each other and not including me in the conversation at all. So it was like pretty heartbreaking for me. And I just remember like that all that feeling of depression just kind of came back and just I would say depression, but no suicidalness, interestingly, but it was just like really bad at that time. And I was able to talk with another friend, and she actually just gave me great support. So I'm supportive of that. I'm sorry. I'm what is that? I'm grateful for that. That's it. I'm grateful for that. And then eventually high school graduation happened. I went to college, and I think it was really in college when it was just like I just stopped being suicidal. I just stopped being sad. And I kind of used those experiences too, like that experience of just feeling like being left out from that conversation about prom. I just turned it around, and now whenever I'm in group settings, I do my best to talk to people, make them feel included, so that they don't feel left out. So I think that was a very transformative experience for me, and I just have not been depressed. I have not been suicidal since then, and I've just been happy. I'm like really happy. So that's that was a whole ride for me, but I am where I am today because of that, and I'm glad I'm here with you, Wilson, my boo.
So you didn't really. It seems like life just went on for you, and you just went through with it day by day, and just eventually like became okay to that middle ground point, and then you just went on from there. And you're just looking
Yeah.
back at it now. Like, would you change anything knowing what you know now? Went through?
You know, I would change my life back then. I would change my life to just be happier back then because the fact that I was suicidal as a fifth grader, I think that's extremely troubling. Like I
For
know
years, yeah.
it's troubling for any ages too, but for a young kid at that age like that, that's very alarming, very triggering, and it just really shows how important mental health is in all aspects of life. And doubling it down on the difficulty of expressing and discussing about your mental health, coming from an Asian household where mental health is a stigma, it's not openly discussed or talked about, or just even like resolved. Like you know it's happening, but you don't do anything to try to solve it. It was a scary moment. So if I really had to change something about myself back then, I would just change that situation because to not be in that type of environment where it was going to foster anything that would have negatively impacted me, I would have changed my life to be happier. I don't know how I would do that, but just be away from all the darkness, just because nobody should ever have to experience going through anything like
I'm glad you're voicing that. It's very true, and the the stigma though that you mentioned for traditional Asian parents, that's I hear that a lot actually, and knowing that like we grow up in different areas too, but we have like similar backgrounds and just like other fellow American streamers like friends that went through the podcast and mentioned that it's insane.
that. Yeah. Yeah, I would say too, it's still pretty pervasive in today's society. I do unfortunately know somebody who passed away from suicide a few years ago. It wasn't Asian, but it was my cousin's husband at that time. But I do remember my great aunt, so her mom was unfortunately she was telling people he passed away, but she wasn't telling people how he passed away. I don't want to say correctly, but she was using another story instead. And it just really that moment really just showed me how mental health is still a stigma, and sometimes how we bring it up is still difficult because of the very stuck in a mindset of old traditional thinking. And even in this day and age of like it's almost 2025, but there's still work that needs to be done to really just empower other people out there who are, experiencing mental health issues, getting them the resources that they need just so they don't have to go through what other people are going through. And it's good to normalize that it's an experience that's happening, but we should also really be stepping forward in a way that um, advocates for their success and improved health just to have a better outcome. And that way they can just fully enjoy life for, what it has to offer.
Yeah, so you're advocating for that. What advice would you give to people that may be going through like a hard time then or struggling mentally?
I would say, even when I know it's hard to like really encapsulate this into your mind, even when you think you are alone, just know you never are. It's really hard to wrap your head around that because sometimes you think you are in the center world, but I would encourage them to take themselves out of that moment and think, I'm experiencing this. Is there something out there that I can use to help me? Are there others that are there to help me? Because I do remember talking with a friend from high school. I hadn't talked to her in years, but I remember she was going through some things, and I was just like, I don't want you to go alone in this journey. So I was talking with her. I even gave her resources. At first, she was a bit hesitant, but eventually she did take the resources, use them, and we disconnected from each other a little bit. But I had been seeing her sometimes posting on social media because that's how we mainly communicated. But I do feel happy that I was reaching out to her and helping her because now I see her posting on social media, and she's always happy, always has a smile on her face. So I know she's living her best life. So just know that if you are experiencing something, know there are resources out there that can help you. There are people who care about you. Just find that to be an empowering thing and get the help that you need so that way, again, you can just enjoy life.
Nicely said. So for you, like at your current state, how would you say you're doing mentally then?
Mentally and emotionally better because I see your cute face. Now that was an unserious response, but no, I would say I'm doing good. I have a lot of, I would say, emotional maturity because I critically think all the time about situations. I've met people that unfortunately, once they run into an obstacle of some sort, they're just like, "What do I do now?" But they do ask for people for help, which I think is a good thing. But for me, I kind of refuse to do that. I'm like, okay, I know I'm stuck here, and then I start looking for things on what I think I can do to help me. So like let's say for example, for work, like I'm trying to run a statistical analysis and I'm writing a code and it's not working properly. most people will just stop there and then start asking people like, "What's wrong with my code? I don't know what I'm doing." What I would do is like, okay, I'll review my code. I'll type into Google. I'll find different solutions. Like I'll employ multiple methods to get to where I'm at. So going back to with my mental health and how I am, like I I think each step of the way just to ensure that I'm able to bring myself back to equilibrium. So when I say that, I mean like let's say like okay, so today at work I was so stressed because we had a tabling event for one of the grant projects we work on, and we're in a renewal process, and we're talking to clinical doctoral students, PsyD students essentially. So these are like PhD level students about the project. I had to get to campus at 7 a.m. And then we had a bit of an issue with like thinking about what to say, who should say it this round, and all of that. And I was kind of like, okay, there's the three of us. This is what we need to say. We're gonna do X, Y, Z. There's a lot of people. We'll take turns. You do this group, you do this group, I'll do this group. And then we'll just switch turns from there. When we can take breaks, we can. And then we'll just keep repeating this as a step or model for the whole duration. And so that was basically the first half of the morning. But again, going back to thinking critically is what I use to help cope with my, I would say, mental and emotional health. Because I touched upon it earlier when I mentioned that work has just been very stressful. Just because we have a lot of deadlines and there's just a lot of activities. I will say, I think my boss is she's just a little cray cray with the grant projects. And because of the level of my work that I do as a data analyst slash program manager, I'm just spread across way too thin across many different projects. And so I just think like, okay, I kind of have to do critical thinking multiple times to help bring myself back down to like not be stressed. Um, but yeah, so interestingly, I would say it's ironic. I use the critical thinking to help me bring myself back down, but because I do it so many times, it does kind of bring me back up to stress level because there's so many things to consider. But also, I would say what else helps me in addition to that is just taking myself out of the environment. Like if I'm working from home and I know I'm stressing out working here, I'll just be like, okay, I'm gonna go take a walk at the park for a bit. Just take myself out of that situation, come back later with a refreshed mind. And I will say too, the spin cycle classes have been helping because I found it to be my third place. And for people who don't know what a third place is, it's a place that is not your home nor your work, and it's a place where you're able to thrive socially and be with your community, your peers, and just be out there and just having some sort of social life. And it really just helps take my mind and my brain away from everything and just be able to have fun.
Nice. Your third cycling. So cycling's your third place.
Yeah, cycling is my third place, and people can have multiple third places. So I'm hoping in the future my third place is a house with you.
Okay, so this Riz stuff, like let's get
And
into that. Let's get into that. Where did this come from? Like how did this start and like what is your thought process about this?
okay, so I think that's probably the one thing I'm most known for in Wilson's chat. I think
Yeah, at
everybody
least
can
in
agree with
mine, but is that like for everyone?
it is for a lot of people. I will say
Huh.
other Twitch streamers. So here's the thing. I don't know. I really don't know how it happened. I can't recall the first time I started rizzing you up in your chat. I just so here's how it works in my brain. Whenever you say something, a thought just comes into my head on how I can cleverly and creatively uh try to rizz you up or flirt with you, I would say. And then I just like write it and just send it in chat. Like I don't give a second thought about it. I just like do it. Like I don't know why it just comes to my head. Like I do think sometimes I am a creative person, so I think that's possibly why.
That part's understandable, but like why is it specifically for geared towards like rizzing?
I don't know. I really don't know, and it's such an interesting thing because so I do it with you. I do it with other people too. It's just
So it's just
it
like
just
a
happens.
stream type of thing, or do you do this in person too?
No, actually, now that you put it that way, I don't do it in real life. But I also will say I think I don't really do it in real life because the friends I have, I so I do have guy friends, I do have girlfriends, but I have more girlfriends than I do with guy friends.
Yeah.
And the only time I ever really like riz or whatever or flirt and such, it's just with guy friends, but it's just on Twitch for some reason. Never in real life. I don't know why, quite honestly.
Okay. So do you remember when it first started at least on Twitch then?
When did it first start? I've been on Twitch since 2020,
Okay, about
and
COVID
so it's been a
time.
while.
Uh,
No, I really don't remember. If I had to think the earliest memory, might be in your chat, quite honestly.
okay. So it just your gears started spinning and then you just like went on with it and it became like a thing.
Yeah,
Okay, it's kind of like a gimmick that was created and just has gone on and on.
I think so. I think so, yeah.
Okay. But in person, like, so you don't do that, but would you say like you're very flirty and stuff?
No, I'm not.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about like friendships and then we'll lean towards Twitch and everything. So
Sure.
what do you specifically value when it comes to friendships?
So it is an interesting topic to talk about friendship because I think this past year I've been reevaluating a lot of my friendships.
Oh, okay, let's hear about it.
And
Like how what
I,
changed?
yeah, I think it's helped me realize that how I view a friendship. It is a friendship to me when both sides care for one another and make attempts to contact, communicate with one another. Because if it's one sided, it's not a friendship at all. I was actually talking about this with another Twitch streamer recently, and he said that he viewed a friendship is still happening if one person is hanging on, but the other person isn't as active or communicating or anything. And I kind of thought, like, huh, that's interesting because to me, I think of that as like one person is always putting the effort, but the other person isn't. So it's difficult for me, for my mind to really grasp that it's still considered a friendship. And how I relate that personally to me is that my friends, okay, well, I'm talking about a specific group of friends. So these were actually my old coworkers when I worked at an old job. And I mean, we stayed connected on social media, but we never really hung out with each other. We did start hanging out last year for about a good 6 months. And we had group chats. We did Halloween activities. We did a New Year's activity together actually. And I think what started becoming a heartbreaking thing for me, again, heartbreaking, sadness with that, is I would just notice that they would still hang out, but basically without me and, post pictures on social media. But I also did consider, I already knew that the three of them, they were pretty close before I even joined along. So to me, it was understandable, but it was just, I think it was happening more and more where I was just not part of the conversation. And I know we had a group chat with each other too, and that just died down. And even for one of them, when I was texting her, like out of the blue, I was just asking, like, "Hey, how are you? We haven't talked in a while. Just wanted to see how you were doing." Um, One of the friends responded. She said, "So I let her borrow something a while ago before that, and she thought I was trying to ask her to return it, but I wasn't at all because I just wanted to like genuinely ask how you were." And then I was like, no, I just wanted to see how you were. And then she just didn't respond after that. I do see them together sometimes at house parties our other friend throws. But I saw them recently and I just kind of noticed, like, I think our friendship just ran the course that it was supposed to ran. And because when I look at it this way, they were all friends with each other before and they were on a journey together and I was just kind of like a road stop. And then it ran for 6 months and then they kind of just went off in a different road than I did. So that's how it was. But in that friend group with one friend, we actually walked at the park pretty often together. We'd always do once a week. We do 3-4 miles at the park. We ran a 5K together. Okay, I'm sorry. No, he ran a 10K. I did the 5K because I was not going to torture myself in another 3 miles. Um, And I do remember we had been doing it for years, but earlier this year, he did say that he was feeling burnt out. And, that's fair because he was going back to school. He was stressed about it. He also had to help out at his family's business. So he just didn't have time as much for um, walking in the park. And that was totally understandable. And I just told him, like, let me know whenever you want to walk again and just to let me know, like, if you ever want to talk. And then kind of just, I would say, drift apart from then. And then he got a girlfriend, which, great for him, happy for him. But he also introduced his girlfriend to the other friends and told me nothing about it. The only thing I really found out about his girlfriend was when he posted on social media. I was like, okay, like, real friend right there. Sorry, I know I'm like throwing a little shade when I say that, but I just kind of thought like I
Uh-huh.
just want that communication to keep up, just to like, hey, how are you? Um, just to see how again how we are doing, but it just wasn't as
Was it reciprocated?
I'd say, yeah, reciprocated. And I also viewed how I was putting my effort into the friendships. And I noticed this a lot. I am a very giving person. I tend to do a lot for the other person. And so I just took myself out of the whole thing and I just thought, okay, I noticed I'm putting so much effort in trying to keep this friendship alive. The others aren't. And it just felt so, so exhausting. So with that, I kind of just was like, okay, I'll just kind of just do my own thing. I'm gonna stop putting in effort, and it was a little bit of a sad process, I would say, because it's kind of like in a sense, I was closing that chapter that I didn't want to close, but I felt like I had to. So, but since then, I also took a step back and just realized. So, of the friends I still talk to, there's like very few people I still talk to this day. Like I think honestly, it's just like maybe 2 to 3 friends I talk with, and I feel pretty happy about that just because it's one of those things where people say like you can have so many friends, but it's the quality that matters, and I think that's what I've been experiencing with these friends. So I'm still happy I have them, and it was a journey for me this past year just to really experience and understand that as well.
Wow, very reflective. Um, so it kind of follows along the saying of like as you get older, the fewer like friends you have, like the circle gets smaller and smaller. But you realize that it's like bad for you. The friendships you've had before, you put in more effort, and then you just learn from
Yeah.
that. So moving forward, then, since having that new mindset, were you able to get closer to maybe any new individuals or anything that kind of fit into like the standard that you're looking for when it comes to friendships?
I'm talking to you right now, aren't I?
I didn't want to like put myself in the equation. I didn't know you
No,
thought
you're
that way.
good. Yeah, but no, truthfully, I would say no. Currently speaking, no. The 2 or 3 friends I mentioned earlier, I still talk to them. Where I'm happy with what I have. I will say, I think with the spin cycle class, it, it's another method for me to just go out there and make new friends in the community. But also, I do notice with my mentality, I'm the type to just really think in my own head and not focus on other people around me. So I do try to like create conversations if I can. I've been at my spin studio for about November now, 4 months now. I have met some people. We're on first name basis, but anytime I can like just talk with the person, I'll try to take advantage of that. Like, actually, at the end of class when we were all leaving, I was walking towards my car, leaving the studio, and I was just panting, so tired because it was a tough ride, right? And there's this other person in the class, like I've actually talked with her once before, and she heard me, and she's like, "I feel you," and then I was just using that to bounce back and just create like, yeah, it was so hard today. She's like, "I know," and then we just talked a little bit, but we established that little bit of a rapport with each other. We recognize each other, and then we just said good night. So I would say it's slowly building. Nothing completely new, but I guess they're slowly planting the seed, just waiting for it to grow.
Yeah, no rush, anyways. Okay, so I kind of got a gist of like the type of friendships that you value and what qualities you kind of look for. Knowing that you do have like a few that you would consider really, really close, would you say you have like a category for the type of friends you have? For example, there's the Twitch friends, there's the
Hmm.
college friends, stuff like that. Like, what's your mindset on that?
I would say for me, I want to say I think it's mainly just two friend groups. One is the Twitch group, and then the other is just the real life friends. One of my close friends, I would say, we've been friends with each other for 10 years now, actually. And we met in college. It's quite funny because so we actually took a GE class together. It was a theater arts class, and I just remember her first impression. So what happened was we walked into class and we were looking for seats to sit in, and she just happened to go into the same row as me, and we kind of talked a little bit the first day, and we didn't talk as much. And the second day, oh, actually, bringing it back, so you guys know how first week of classes you always have to show so that way you can save your seat, you don't get dropped from the course.
Yeah.
So that was the mentality I was implementing that week. So the second day of that class during the first week, I purposely put my backpack on one of the seats to save a seat for her because I knew that it was hard to try and find a seat. She came, I didn't notice her because I was listening to music and looking down. But she saw the backpack, but I didn't see her, so she ended up just sitting at the chair next to my backpack. And when we talked about this years later, I was like, "No, I actually saved that seat for you because I knew that it was gonna be a packed class and it's gonna be hard to find the seat." And I remember she told me she also thought that I had resting bitch face because I was like so serious.
Okay.
Um, so she to this day we've done so many things, and she knows a lot about all of my crackhead shenanigans.
Yeah.
Like, so actually, Wilson, I don't know if you remember, but the last time we saw each other, I had glasses on. As of right now, I actually have contact lenses, and I've been wearing contact lenses since last week. And my friend and I, we were hanging out about a week ago, and then I was asked, she told me how her contact experience was like. I used to wear contact lenses back then, it was like 15 years ago, but I thought about getting back into it again. So I got contact lenses last week. I actually wasn't expecting to get contact lenses in the appointment already, but I just wore it, did my thing, and I didn't tell my friend actually. But how she found out was that I I was with a different friend at that time. We were walking at the park, and okay, look, this is how random and extra I am. I said my friend and I we should take a picture, but we should also include that homeless sleeping guy sleeping on the lawn in the picture for funsies. Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
why that was running through my head, but it did. Okay. And so we took the picture, and then I sent that picture to my friend. I told her, I was like, look what we did, because she knows all of my extra crack kid shenanigans. And then that's how when she found out I had contact lenses, and she's like, why do I find out things about you from the weirdest things? And so that's one of the weirdest things. So that's one of my close friends. And I think for that category of close friends, like they really know me well. Um, and just how I am as a person, and same vice versa too. And then for the Twitch friends, I think that's another good group for me to categorize. The reason being is because um I'm not too sure if you heard of it. Have you heard of something called like a parasocial
Yeah,
relationship?
relationships, yep.
Yeah. I forgot what it entailed, but it I felt like it was a good space for me to just to exert social energy I do have without having to fully commit as a friendship. At that time when I was thinking about it, but I mean, it's kind of evolved to like, oh, I know these people well enough, and they also know me, and we some of us have hung out in real life, and then there's actually a few I'm planning to hopefully see in a few weeks if plans work out. But it was another avenue for me to just like exert social energy I have, but also just talk with people, build that kind of friendship with them. So, um, actually, I should bring this up too. I used to be addicted to Maple Story back in the day when it was popular. I had friends on there too. We all became close with each other. I still do talk to them today, not as often, unfortunately, because we all have our own lives and they also live far apart. But I will be seeing one of them in a few weeks. Uh, we're actually so close with each other. I went to one of their weddings two
Wow.
years ago, up in the Bay Area, actually. So I visited, we hung out, and yeah, so online friends have been very beneficial for me.
speaking of online, let's transition to that. Let's talk about your social media presence before
Sure.
Twitch. I know a big one is your food Instagram account. So just talk about like the introduction, how you got into that, and how the journey's been.
So for Twitch, I got into Twitch because my cousin, he streams on Twitch, and uh he told me about it. I didn't know what Twitch was, and then when I made an account, I was like, "Ooh, let's troll him for fun." So again, going back to the extra crackhead energy, that was the first thought that came to my head. I just wanted to troll him, so that's why I came up with this name, yerppyderppy. Because when I was asked, when I was tasked in the registration process to create a username, I was like, "What name should I make that is not my own name?" And so I actually came up with two options at that time. It was either going to be Yerpy Derpy or Herpa Derpa. Spoiler alert! I came out with Yerpy Derpy.
Huh.
So ever since then, I would go into his stream, talk with him, and I would like go do my own research for other streamers, find them if I was interested in what their chat was about. I would talk with them. One of my key pointers in finding a good streamer is how they carry themselves in the stream, just how respectful they are of everybody, how they talk. So that's the pointers I use in deciding to follow somebody. And then bringing it to my food Instagram page. So I I've actually liked cooking food since I was a high schooler. I remember it was sophomore year. No, actually, I started cooking eggs in fifth grade, but I didn't necessarily do anything extravagant. And when I say extravagant, it was like baking cupcakes and such like that. I didn't do any of that until sophomore year in high school, and it just kept developing it over the years. And where I've learned to cook was honestly just online, a lot of YouTube videos and recipes. Then it was in college, freshman year. I Somebody was wishing me happy birthday, and then they said that they liked seeing my food at that time because at that time I was posting a lot on Facebook. They said that you should make an Instagram account. I was like, okay, that's a great idea. So I did. And I had just been posting food content on there since then. And it was just photos, like unedited photos. I actually still have them up on my profile. Uh, so I've been posting since then. It's been like that for 10 years. And I'm sorry, it's coming up 10 years. So I've also seen how Instagram has really evolved over the years, and especially what people's priorities are. Like I've unfortunately I have met people at collaborations where they really just seem to care about getting the free food, getting followers, increasing that number, but also most importantly getting the likes, getting famous, all of that stuff. But how it's grown for me, so I would say it's it's grown very slowly over the years, but I really just focus more on the quality than I do with the quantity. I just don't want to stress myself out about like number of likes, number of views, my posts get. I know I do that sometimes too, but at the end of the day, I still remember like just take myself out of that situation and just remember that these numbers don't validate me. What really validates me is how I feel posting about the content, how it looks like, because that's what I want to portray. My main passion with my food Instagram account is just showing my love and my passion for it. I know I just kind of repeated myself, but that's what I have envisions for my page. I just want to share my experiences, and if people want to do something with that, go for it. Do what you want with all the information. These are my experiences, and I just want to share with the world because I don't want to gatekeep things because it's like, you know, this is my experience and I want to share with people. It's funny I say that because I one of my recent TikTok videos blew up. Like 200K views, um so many thousands and thousands of bookmarks, likes, comments. And there was actually one comment that they said, don't like, they didn't want this to go viral because they wanted to gatekeep the place. It was a fried chicken dish basically that I was eating. Oh, by the way, I do have a presence on TikTok. It's not that big as compared to my food Instagram, but I will say, in terms of the numbers, in categorizing that amongst other people, I am on the lower end, but again, I really emphasize more on the quality. I know other people out there, they somehow skyrocketed in numbers. But at the end of the day, the type of content they produce is just not, it's not aligning with what I want to put out. And I just realized, like you do you and I'll do me. I'm gonna do my own thing and I'm gonna be happy with what I put out because that's what I want to put out. So that's the presence I have with my food Instagram account. I have actually made some friends on there, been able to connect with one another and just see and talk with people from different parts of the world. And it's just been a very unique experience that I'm really grateful for, actually.
So what's your goal with that food Instagram? Since you're not trying to achieve fame or get those numbers or anything, and you know that it's been at a what you said like a slower pace compared to
Yeah.
others. So what's the goal?
My main goal is just to post food, just be happy with it, just create content, show off my creativity in areas that I can, whether it's like editing style. I do know if you go like take a rabbit hole down my profile, you'll see like there's been a gradual change in terms of how the content looks like. Back then, when I first started, I took photos of like just um, unedited, very unpleasant looking photos, and eventually down the line, you see like, oh, I took nicer photos. Like I took it with a DSLR camera, edited the photo in Lightroom, that sort of stuff. And then I started doing videos, and then that's where I was able to express my creativity with editing styles, like editing like right on the beat of the music, getting like kind of extravagant with it. Um, and then right now, I've actually transitioned my content to focus more on ASMR. I'm not as active as I used to be, but my but I think actually talking it out loud now, out talking it out loud just now made me realize I think my one of the main goals is just to help express my creativity that I just really never thought about. But the overarching main goal is just again to just really showcase like, oh, this is what I'm cooking. This is what I'm eating. This was where I was at. Like just sharing that experience, not gatekeeping anything. I just wanna just again repeating myself again, just want to share all that experiences.
Yeah. Congrats to almost 10 years. It's really cool that you've been like continuing it. Maybe not like consistent all the way through, but the fact that you're just still on top of that about a decade ago.
Yeah, and I want to add on to that actually. I was consistent. I want to say somewhere between like 7 year 6 to year 9 actually.
Yeah.
And then at the end of year 9, so back in December 31st, 2023, going into the new year, at that time, I was actually experiencing burnout. And the reason why I was experiencing burnout was because I was editing all those videos and I was just feeling a lot of pressure from trying to create content that was engaging for people to view because I did notice that my engagement was incredibly dropping. And it
Yeah.
was because I wasn't adapting my content to similarly to how other people were doing it. And it was a common, I think it's still a common trend actually, but it was still a common trend back then for people to um, record the video but like speed it up and make it look like it's like kind of very chaotic and all over the place, and it was just like it was one of those content where you had to rewatch it a couple of times to get what the whole thing was about, and I just wasn't about that. And I think because I refused to follow such trends that Instagram decided to like really punish me on the algorithm. And
Yeah.
creating with that video stuff. It was just a lot of work editing a video. Like these are like 1 minute videos, sometimes 1.5 at most. And it was just taking a lot out of me. So I remember at that time I just decided to take a break from it, especially because I had been doing it for 9 years. Just take a break, relax. And so from January 1st, I took a break. And then I came back to it at the end of September. And so I've been back at it since then. Not at the same pace, but I do try to be consistent at least like once a week, make a post. Um, but yeah, so right now, for celebration wise, yeah, I'm reaching 10 years in 2 weeks. I'm also trying to match that up with my 900th post. It would have been cool if it was the 1000 post because
Yeah.
1000 in 10 years, but it didn't work out. So whatever. So I'll just do it with the 900 post.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned that it feels like you never want it to feel like work for the burnout and then
Mhm.
yeah, that's tough though that just didn't follow the trend, so you're kind of facing that some sort of punishment from the algorithm, whatever. But at least you're staying true to yourself. That's important. You're going with like your own personal editing style. And it's also just cool that you're not only into food, but you're learning to edit along the way, the
Yeah.
content creator. But you also branched out to TikTok, doing the same form of content,
Yeah,
similar.
I know like there was I think Instagram tried to punish people too for like posting the same stuff. So
Yeah.
I think I tried to like work around it. I don't think it really worked, but I know what was interesting is that since coming back to my food Instagram account, same with the TikTok, I transitioned to doing ASMR on TikTok, and that has been working really well. The algorithm on TikTok is actually a lot more friendlier than the Instagram one, and that's been pretty evident with what I've been seeing. Because I will post the same things, but TikTok has a lot more engagement. On my Instagram, my best performing video has only 1,000 likes, but on my TikTok, I think it's 20,000 likes. So
We're talking
there's
about
it,
reels, like Instagram reels.
yeah, yeah,
I see.
yeah.
Which
What was I gonna say about that? Yeah, I think TikTok. I started doing ASMR, but I personally like content. It also has a bit of the music in the background too, just to like listen and watch. So I think that's where I'm differentiating my content now. Um, TikTok will just be purely ASMR, and then Instagram will have the ASMR but with a bit of background music. And I'm also focusing a lot less on editing the music, like on the beats or anything like that, and just having the music play. That's about it.
okay, so very similar niche, just different styles for
Yeah,
both format or platforms.
yeah.
Okay, cool. So, how about your Twitch journey? How'd that go, and where are you at with it now?
So I'm so I stream on Twitch just for fun. I don't really look to make a career out of it. When I first started streaming on Twitch, it was a little over 2 years ago. And here's how random and spontaneous I am. I was shopping at Costco, and I was just, before I even got in, I was like recording it. I'm sorry, I was thinking like, what content do I want to create today? Like maybe it's a shopping haul or something like that. So I recorded all of that, and then I left Costco. I'm rolling the shopping cart back to my car, and then this thought really, literally just came into my head. I had no thinking nor process of it. I was like, I should stream myself editing this video on Twitch. And so I just drove home, quickly downloaded Streamlabs, and then I started editing. I didn't know what I was doing. I was not prepared at all.
Yeah.
And I do think it really speaks to my personality because I can be a bit reckless sometimes. So that was one example of me being reckless. And then I just started doing it since then because I knew that I was going to be editing videos quite often. So I thought, maybe I could make a routine schedule of some sort streaming on Twitch. Um, I I did, but then I also learned quickly that streaming on Twitch was like another avenue of me expending my social battery if I was talking to people, especially.
Yeah.
So since I think because editing videos, oh, actually, I experience issues trying to edit videos sometimes. Like it would crash and the stream would crash too, the video program crashing, I mean. So I switched. I decided to um, play games. So it was like Genshin Impact, Solo Level or Rising. I would play those games sometimes, and then um, I would play those, and then just like do short streams here and there because I didn't want to stream for too long. And in terms of where my growth is from there, I also just was not concerned about my followers or anything like that. I know Twitch affiliate is one of the things that Twitch has as a opportunity for growth, but I wasn't really too concerned with that because I was just like I just wanted to do it for fun,
Yeah.
and I just kind of for how it grew, it mainly grew with people who I already had established relationships with through Twitch. Like if it's a streamer I know, um, I would just drop it in the chat. I'd be like, they no, they'd like ask me like, oh, how are you? And I'd be like, oh, I just finished streaming this game. And then they're like, you stream? I'm like, yeah. And then they would just follow me. So I think most of my following has just been from other people I've established through Twitch, and then sometimes some few random people here and there. And that's been how my Twitch journey has been like for the past 2 years. I unfortunately do not have a very consistent stream schedule right now just because I have been busy with life and just experiencing things. for what it is. I do try to stream every once in a while I can. Not lately, it's going to be either like playing Genshin Impact or holding origami cranes.
Okay, some categories there. So, what about the Twitch relationships you've made? Like, talk about maybe the first friend group that you were part of, and then, again, just up until where you're at today, chronological order.
It's Let me see. I gotta look at this list of people I follow because there's so many.
Or, yeah, whatever
Uh,
you can remember, honestly,
yeah.
because you may have followed people, but, like, which communities were you, like, close with, before you just went down the line?
Oh, actually, no. So I do remember. It was interesting. So I'll just mention a couple of their names, just I think to make the understanding of it easy.
Yeah.
So one of the streamer, he doesn't stream anymore, but his name is Mark. I actually know Mark from real life because we were both involved in um Circle K in college. I found out he streamed, and then we I would go into his chat, talk with him, and then there was another person in the chat who he knew from real life too, also part of Circle K. His name is Kevin. I got to meet Kevin, go into his streams, talk with him, and then through him, I met other streamers that he knows too. One of them is named Nick, and then through Nick is when I kind of met that little small community of Twitch streamers that Kevin is part of. And I think I'm gonna bring up a name you'll know actually, because Nick knows this person, and that person is Kez.
Oh,
Yeah, so I met
wow.
Kez through that, and then that's how I kind of got connected to you too. And then through you, I also met just so many other people. Like I remember you used to do your like charity streams back then with like the talent show, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
I know that's how I found Ian. Shout out Hans Sexy, Hans Cutie. The other one was Jarrell. I would go into their streams, talk with them too. Other people like Philip and Maple. Fun fact, Maple is the first person I met from Twitch in real life.
Well, how'd that happen?
So I'm not gonna dox her for where she lives, but I was visiting basically, and then when I told her, I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna be in the area," and so we kind of connected from there. We hung out, also because I have family who live in that area, so we chatted, we hung out, we got to know each other, and then yeah, that's just how it happened. We just got boba. We talked for 2 hours. We chatted. Got to just hang out in person. It was nice. Like actually meeting somebody from Twitch outside of the online world.
Was that a eye-opening experience for you, and did it feel different just seeing her in person versus online?
Okay, it was. I would say it's an interesting experience because I still forget about this sometimes. But for Chad who don't know about this, I am a very tall person. To be exact, I am 6'3" in real life. So it was it was a unique experience like to see first we have a height difference obviously. And but honestly though, it didn't feel weird or necessarily eye-opening because I just kind of thought of it as like just two friends having a conversation with each other. And so that's what it felt like. Um, Also, I'm only going to say this because the people's brought up, but if Solo, you're watching, Yeehaw Kimchi, that's what you get. um, but yeah, after I met Maple, that's when the next time I ever did a Twitch meetup in real life, actually, that was with you, Wilson, when I met also you, Gary, Alex, and Emmy and Justin. So that was the next time I did a Twitch meetup in real life. And I haven't done one since, but I've just been still like on Twitch, going into people's streams, chatting with them. But in terms of like other communities out there, I've just been like, I guess if I meet one person and I notice other people that frequent their chat,
Yeah.
I'll also check out their page, see if they stream or not. And then when they stream, I'll check them out too. I also want to check you out, Wilson. Right there. Um, I'll check them out and then, just build that rapport and relationship from there and just kind of I would say it's like networking in like a spider web kind of way.
Yeah.
Just going down whichever path I can. And that's just how I've been able to meet so many different people on Twitch.
Very cool. So, I know you briefly touched on what kind of streamers you like watching specifically. Can you
Hmm.
go more into detail of that? Like what keeps you onto Twitch and just like what streams you're interested in watching, and maybe even the categories too, if that matters. I feel like it doesn't as much. But what
I
do you
think the
think?
category does help because, uh, similarly, when I would mention earlier about how perceived similarity and um, with my research project, I think when you're watching a Twitch streamer that they're playing a game that you also play, it's that similarity that kind you establish already. So like you're more motivated to check them out. So I feel
Okay,
like
that aspect, yeah.
yeah, that's a very convincing thing that draws me to them. I well, how do I do this actually? I will look up like Genshin Impact actually, and I'll just look for people in there. I'll do the same with like um, what was that game? Solo Level Rising, same thing like that, and I'll just watch these people give like a quick sample of like how are they like? Do they talk with chat? Are they paying attention to chat?
Okay.
Just getting that kind of vibe. And I will say it's interesting though because even though I do all of that, the streamers I tend to follow, a lot of them play Valorant. I don't play Valorant. I value my mental health, so I don't play Valorant.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's interesting to see like how a lot of the streamers I follow they tend to play Valorant. Valorant. There's another shooting game. I just forgot what it was called, but um, yeah, it's just interesting with that. But I think though the overall grand scheme of things, it really boils down to just their personality and how they are
Yeah.
as a person, and do I vibe with this person?
Okay. So what do you think are like you don't stream a lot yourself, but what do you think are like the negative aspects of Twitch?
I do think the negative aspects of Twitch. Let's see. So I would say more from my perspective, if when I'm streaming, look, I am a small streamer, very small streamer, less than 100 followers. I think it could be a negative impact for me. I think also for me as a streamer myself too is that um, I have a hard time talking when nobody's there while I'm streaming. So I tend to be just so focused and invested on what I'm looking at right now. Um, that I won't be able to just like openly say something. And the only times I think I really would be more lively and expressive is if I see people chatting in my Twitch chat. But again, I think that's more of like negative a negative aspect from my streamer's perspective. For other people's perspective, um, so going back to when I mentioned earlier about the parasocial relationship,
Hmm.
sometimes I do think people might take it a little bit too far and think that they are really, really close with the streamer when again it's just a parasocial relationship. Like you're just talking on chat and not like outside, let's say. And I have seen some cases where people actually just trauma dump and it kind of dampens the mood. Like I'm not saying openly expressing your feelings and emotions is a bad thing. But when you're doing it in such a public space and it's also affecting the Twitch streamer, I guess in this case a performer, but then this performer is trying to interact with everybody in chat, it just really changes the vibe, the environment, and it's just not I would say like an appropriate place to do so. So I think that can be a negative thing. And I would want hope for that people understand that there's like a time and place to be talking about these things, but especially consider where you're openly expressing yourself in such a setting and understanding and being aware of what your relationship with the streamer actually is before you say anything because it's a lot to read. And I know some people when they're reading these somebody's stress related experiences, trauma related experiences, whatever it is, like if it was me reading this, I would actually kind of feel uncomfortable just even saying anything in chat because I just don't know how I can like necessarily insert myself into the stream without invalidating what this not well kind of ignoring but also like not recognizing this person's experience that they need help. So that's what I've noticed sometimes before, and I think that's one of the main negative things I can think of.
Okay, interesting point. So for you, do you feel like there's maybe a misconception or difference of how you're perceived online versus who you really are in person?
Yeah, because how you are as a person online can be different from how you are as a person, because it's like living two different personas. I would say for me, I do think there's a little bit of that in me, and this goes back to when like so I miss you a bunch of times online, but in real life, I don't do that to anybody. So I think there's like a specific nuance there that is. Should I even say specific nuance? Just I noticed a difference there. But I also think about the time when I was talking about my employment earlier at my old Boba job, where my shift lead was saying how I act in person is basically the same how I act outside.
Yeah.
I think maybe online and in real life, that's where you see a difference. But for me, in different settings in real life, that's where I would say I'm more consistent upon my personality and behavior.
Yeah, even if it's like in a professional setting, it's just like who you actually are though. In that
Oh
case
my
with
God.
your your
Even in the
coworkers.
professional setting, what happened was on Tuesday, um, I was part of a work training just to help moderate stuff. And so again, this is a work training between UCLA, my workplace, the private university, and the Department of Healthcare Services, which is based in Sacramento, by the way, a high level government agency. Everybody is attending this training to um, better learn about basically grant related stuff. Everybody's putting their chat in their name, like first name, last name, which organization they're from. Everybody's doing that, and then I do the same thing too. But then at the end, I add an actual additional comment, and I said, "Happy Taco Tuesday," and that's been a recurring thing. I say that in any professional setting I'm at, especially if it's on a Tuesday. I'm like especially when I'm meeting new professionals out there in the field, and whatever I can say to I guess just liven up the mood. I'll just do it and I'll take it. And I think I get perceived about that with my personality in real life. Like I know I might be viewed actually this is where I can be viewed differently. People might not take me seriously enough because like I can joke around, I can mess around and just say
The
stuff.
fun guy,
But
yeah.
yeah. But the work that I do, I will say is extremely intricate and detailed. Like nothing nothing goes over my eye. Like even today when my boss, she was she's writing a project narrative, which is basically is a research report to apply for a new grant. It is 40 pages long. The margins are stretched out to the ends of the pages. It is single space. She was scrolling through it and I told her like, wait, stop. Because I saw an error and I'm like, no, fix that. This it's not 7.99, it's 7.98. And I saw a couple of those. I'm like, no, stop, stop. I see you scrolling, but stop. And I kept telling her to like, you need to fix that. Like that's the level of work I do. Of how even though I can be seen as serious in one situation, how I work is like completely different.
All right, so that is online perception versus in reality. Um,
Yeah.
More so about the meetups. Talk about what your mindset was like during that second Twitch meetup when we met, and then Alex was there. You said Emmy, Justin, Gary. Like, how did that compare to like the first one? What did you have expectations and stuff, and what actually went down?
So the one when I hung out with Maple for the first time, I
Yeah,
kind of just went in like a little nervous because it was the first time we were hanging out in person. We just got boba, but it just felt very how do I say it wasn't I stopped feeling nervous after we were just talking because it was just like just talking like how we would sometimes in chat. That's
yeah.
how I felt like it was. And then when we met up, um, I was like, oh my god, I'm finally gonna meet the hot ABV Wilson himself. I hope he takes the shirt off. I'm just kidding. I didn't think that. Um, but I was just thinking like it just felt nice because I think at that time I wasn't hanging out as much, going out or doing anything. I was really just kind of a homebody, so I just felt nice to like, oh, I'm gonna go hang out. I'm gonna meet Wilson finally in real life. Like I can't believe this is actually happening. And then I go there and I meet Alex and I meet Gary. And I know like we were just talking, getting to know each other. it was a very good experience for me just to like meet people, just kind of go out there and just try to have fun. And I think that was the main goal of what I wanted to do with it was just to have fun and just be out of the house.
Nice. Glad you
Yeah.
thought that. Like it was, yeah, just a way for you to get out.
Yeah.
Little adjustment to your comfort zone, I guess, too. But it's cool that you also met like the other friends that you see in chat too. So,
Yeah, speaking of comfort zone, like I've adjusted, especially because I mean I'm drinking Thai tea, which by the way I gotta show off. I got the Genshin Impact collab at Happy Lemon.
oh, what the heck? Happy
It's,
Lemon has that? Is it everywhere?
yeah, everywhere.
Oh,
Limited
Happy Lemon.
supply,
Okay.
but it's everywhere. Look at this. Jean, Fleet. Okay, and I also gotta show off too. So it's an exclusive bag. This is the exclusive
Oh,
bag, and then
W.
a little cup holder thing. This is from Klee, by the way. So if I may. Oh, I'm also keeping the cup that they gave me. So like a little cup sleeve, right?
Hey, Happy Lemon. Okay.
Yeah, so if Happy Lemon is still open for you after this, I bet you can go there. I'll meet you.
Happy Lemon
And then,
is probably not gonna be, but it's okay. It's okay.
yeah, and then stickers.
Oh,
Yeah.
influencer.
So that's the collab they're doing. I don't remember when they're ending it, but just do know that the collab is happening right now.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good to know. Good to know. All right. Switching gears here. So we're gonna dive into your love life.
Sure.
Okay. I guess you could just start from the beginning. Like, where do you want to go in chronological order? Like past relationships, whatever you want to call type of relationships you've had, or just thoughts. What did you go through? What did you learn from? Break it down for us.
So interesting. I have never said this in real life. Identify as gay. That was a whole thing, different thing in school. But in terms of love life, I have never been in a relationship. I've been on dates, but I've just never been in an official relationship of any sort. And I think too, with my mindset and how I am as a person and what I want out of my life right now, a relationship is just not one of them. Like I just feel so focused on um working, just living my life, having fun, enjoying it, that to me a relationship isn't that important. And I know people out there they say like they don't feel complete unless they have their other half. I disagree with that because in to me, I don't like being codependent on other people. I like being self-dependent and just supporting myself through whatever it is that I want to do or to be successful in things and whatnot. I don't. I just don't feel like a relationship is really going to. Actually no, I should rephrase that. I just don't see myself in a relationship still. Um, I do get those thoughts though. You know, like, oh my gosh, I
What it
don't
would be
know.
like? Uh huh.
Yeah, what it would be like to be in a relationship. Um, so Wilson, chat me up after this, right? Um, I just don't have that much of an importance, and I was talking about this with my friend a while ago too. And when I thought of a couple of things, okay, so long story short, I'm turning old for chat to know. I am turning 30 in a few weeks, okay? New decade, new
So
me.
young. Oh my god.
I have actually have a perfect birthday caption. A lot of people think I'm 24 years old, so my birthday caption is gonna be like, "Happy 24 to me. Been getting away with being 24 for 6 years. Let's make it forever."
Okay. Sneak
Um,
preview.
but yeah. So uh I was talking with my friend. I was like, a lot of people have that mentality and thought like, by the time I'm 30, I want to do these things. But when I was thinking about it, relating it to me, I was like, I don't care. Like, I just still living my life, just doing what I want. But if I had to think of what I want to do by the time I'm 30, I think at that time I was either thinking about top three or top five things, whichever one it was. But of the things I thought of, being in a relationship was not one of them. It just wasn't a high priority for me. It just wasn't important. Because I just felt like I can be self sufficient in myself. I can just do things I want to do and not have to rely on somebody. And if a relationship did happen, then it happened and I'd be okay with that too. But at the end of the day, I just know I'm going to be successful in my own way, my own life. I just refuse to be dependent on somebody else. If I can meet somebody who matches the same energy and as me and we match on other things too, great, but it's not necessarily something that I find that it's going to define my success, my future, or anything like that. And I've met a person who she's in a relationship. She's not a friend, by the way, but she she said this to my other friend. She said like, "Oh, it must be so lonely just being by yourself." And she also said something else about like kind of talking down on her for being single, but it really just isn't important to me, to be quite honest.
Yeah, so you've always had this mindset growing up?
On not growing up, I think that mindset only started developing after I finished grad school.
Yeah.
I think just growing up, so it wasn't in the back of my head or anything like that at all. I
Yeah.
think maybe it's like a typical high school or middle school or anything like that. There were people in relationships all the time on campus. I saw it, but it wasn't important to me. But I don't think I necessarily actualized it until after I finished graduate school.
See, so how was your dating experience at least? And even if you don't feel like you want to be in a relationship or anything, are there like some traits or like do you have a specific type at least?
So that's the thing. I think if I have to think about traits, personality, it's hard to think about what I want
Yeah.
just because of the lack of dating experience. I mean, I've been on dates here and there, but it's just hard to really pinpoint. But if I were to think about the relationship similarly to like a friendship, but on a kind of a different spectrum, I think at the very core of it, I do value communication just because I don't want this. I think it's reflective too of how I view the friendships. I just never wanted to be one sided. I always wanted to ensure that we're both putting in the effort, that we're both in it together, that we both care for each other, and it's just not one person always doing more for the other or doing more than the other. And I know sometimes in some situations in life that might be an imbalance, but it's always going to be dependent on certain things. But if it's one of those things where, like, okay, I have this friend that I don't really talk to anymore as much, but she's currently engaged. But how her personality is like is she's not the type to initiate anything, and her fiance is kind of the same thing, but they're engaged and they're not necessarily doing anything. So kind of that um how do we say that mix of no effort being put in. I know it's a little bit of a different scenario example I'm talking about, but them being the type to not put in effort into anything, they're not going to go anywhere. I would rather put my energy and resources into somebody I know who is going to do the same because to me that just shows that they care. And so, um, actually, I talked about two things right there. So communication is one of them. Talking, being communicative with another, but also just showing that effort. So, um, I forgot what was that one phrase. It was like, "Oh, actions speak louder than words." That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Relevant to significant others and everything. I get it. Do you happen to know what your love language is then, at least?
Yeah, I cook a lot. Food. It's always gonna be food. Yeah. So if I give you food, okay. So how I do food too is like my friend I saw recently. Her birthday just recently occurred recently, and um there's this specific restaurant. They have a couple of locations in SoCal, and she really loves the. I forgot what the name of the dish is called, but I know we just call it like the Sichuan fries. and it's just basically French fries where they put Sichuan seasoning on it. So typical Sichuan seasonings includes like chili powder, Sichuan peppercorns for like the tingliness, cumin seeds, sesame seeds, and other spices if necessary. So because I knew that she really liked it, what I did was I looked up recipes online for Sichuan seasoning and I tried to recreate it myself. And then once I was able to create a close enough flavor profile to what the restaurant does, then I made a large batch for her and then I gave that to her in a jar so that she can just use it whenever she wants to season her food, or if she's making french fries at home, use that as a seasoning too. So that's one example of why I think food is a love language for me, because I'm always thinking about how I can use my love for something and translate that to other people as a form of my love language.
All right. So I understand like you don't have like the relationship experience and everything. So and I know that you want to focus on yourself. What would you say are your current short-term and long-term goals then that you know of?
My short term that I have right now is I really thinking about it with work. I I do feel, well, it's encompassing together just with so much that's been going on with work in terms of, like, I would say workplace politics relating to like HR, being paid properly, promotion. That's one thing to consider. But the other thing to consider is that where I've been at for work, again, I've been at my current place for 2 years as a student and then 3 years as a staff member. So collectively, I've been here for 5 years. And I just feel like I've just kind of outgrown myself in the position that I am. I was promoted to the current position a year ago, but it's just those two combined, I have started to feel like I want to be somewhere else. So I've already put in a job application for a county job a while ago, and I'm awaiting a process for that because I know county jobs take a while to process. If I don't get that job, then I will still be looking elsewhere because I do see myself leaving my current position sometime in March 2025. I would stay longer if I'm not able to find anything, but that is my current goal right now. I am hopeful I will find something because I know I'm able to demonstrate my skills and capabilities. And there is a big job demand for what I do out there, specifically data analyst. So that's where I am uh, short term with my employment. For a long term, I still do see myself working as a data analyst because I really enjoy writing statistical analysis. Um, and also, I think I thrive in the idea that in the psychology world too, you can do therapy, you can do play therapy, you can do other work too, but the realm of research and statistics is not a very popular one amongst all the psychology people. But regardless of that, when you look at it overall from all the other fields too, uh, data analysts, data science, that sort of stuff, there's a high demand for it too. So I do feel confident I'm able to find something down the line. But regardless of where I am, my main goal with that long term is just to still use data and work with it to help inform people. Because one reason why I love working with data is because I'm able to translate that information and make it more tangible and accessible to people who don't understand data. And the main thing I like about data is that it helps inform people on reasons why we should do certain things. So, for example, um, that's related to Elenium because I know you like Elenium. Um, Elenium has high demand for tickets, let's say, and I can look at the projection of how many times he's sold out in the past
Uh-huh.
and how many shows he's done, and use that to imply for future, like maybe he should do additional shows, or maybe he should play in bigger venues. So using that information to help benefit society as a whole, I think is what I still want to do long term regardless, because it's just, I think this is where I come from, my community mindset. I just want to use it for the greater good to help improve society as a whole so we can all, just live and be at peace with each other and just know there is work being done to help improve our daily life. So that's work. Food, my food account and Instagram, that I would say what I said earlier still stands. I just want to share my happiness with it, what I love about food, what I want to share, and just show people what it's about. Because again, that community mindset, I think that's just what I just want to show. And then as for myself personally, with regards to like mental, emotional health, I just still want to see myself happy. It doesn't matter if it's short term or long term, because I think how I am as a person going out there is with the happy with the happiness and a smile is what's important to me, because I just don't want to live a life that's sad and depressing. There's going to be no benefit, no fun, nor joy. So that's what I want out of my life.
Hey, thank you for sharing that. What do you feel like is has been your greatest accomplishment so far, and something like you would consider as your greatest regret?
Greatest accomplishment and greatest regret. I think so. I don't know if it's necessarily the greatest regret, but I could see it as a potential one. It was the first time I had ever dated somebody, and it was nice because it was the first time I had ever gone on a date, and there's mutual like. But my greatest regret, I think it was just how I carried myself um in the dating process. We actually dated for it was in June, and then we stopped talking sometime around October. So, but it was my first time dating. I just didn't know how to go about that whole experience. But I won't go into detail
You
about it,
talking about
but it
this
was
year?
just no, this was
Okay.
no, no, no.
So
This
you're
was
talking about this year.
2017.
She's got it.
Oh no. This was 2017. Um yeah, I just think how I carried myself in that relationship. I mean, not relationship, but just dating process. I do regret that. I would change things about that. As for my greatest accomplishment, uh the one thing that popped into my head immediately is just um in my entire family. So when I mentioned earlier, I have a really large family. I am the second oldest, so I think because of the given and of how that's like, from oldest to youngest, I was the first person in my, not just my own family, but my entire family to graduate from college. But I also was the first one to get a master's degree out of everybody. I do feel like that was a little bit expected out of me, just because I know myself. I did see myself going to graduate school. So if we're talking academically, that's my biggest accomplishment. Um, Other accomplishments, you know, I would say maybe that one TikTok video I mentioned earlier that went kind of viral. Not necessarily viral, but
200K. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it. So I do view that as an accomplishment. In terms of like, it's my highest performing video, regardless of which platform it is. But a little bit of regret with that is that I should think about how I react to things, because I know I can be reactionary. Like, okay, to be, I'm gonna say an example. Like, so I took that video after I I finished a spin cycle class. So my hair was a mess, right? Like I was sweaty, it was not combed properly. And there was a person who commented, I don't know why, but they said, a comb is cheaper than this dish. And then this was my initial reaction, because I was so livid. I was easily, um, I would
Oh
say,
boy.
reactive to it.
Yeah, yeah.
I was about to comment and say, "Yeah, and so is sex with your mom." I didn't. I didn't though. I was about to say it, but I didn't. So, it was an accomplishment, but I do think the cons kind of weighed more than the benefits. Um, Actually, an accomplishment I just thought of. It's if I relate it to my whole life, which I think is a very unique experience. So it talks about my whole academics, and to get to where I am, I do think it is such an accomplishment. Where, going back to when I did the research lab after completing undergrad, I went to present at a psychology conference, and it was at that conference where I was with my other friend, and she saw a presentation that was going on for an hour, and one of the topics was called a foodie call. So a foodie call, for those who, I know nobody's not going to know about it, but a foodie call was basically a play on the word booty call. Wilson, you're my booty call. So a foodie call just means people go on dates with other people for free food. That's what a foodie call is. So it's a play on the word booty call, but it's for free food, and it was tend to happen for like I think the person committing it tends to be more female than males, and that's what it was.
Okay.
She knew that the topic was about food, so she thought about me. So she said, like, "Oh, we should go watch it. We should go listen to what they have to say for the research." And what happened in that presentation at this conference was that the person presenting it was a professor from the university I work for. So I thought he was interesting. Like he was great. This is a social psychology, a great interest. I love the research. After that, I went to go do a poster presentation where I just did it in front of the research project poster that my lab mates and I did. And then like a few minutes after setting up, I noticed across from me is the booth where the master's program I did was tabling. So I just walked over and I'm like, oh, what's this program about? And then I got to know about the program a little bit more. And then I was like, oh, so this is all statistics related. Well, guess what? I did that poster right across from you guys right there. And I did the statistics since I was really trying to build rapport right there, give a good impression. And then later I applied for the program and I got accepted. And as part of the program requirements, you have to do the classes and also do a thesis. When doing a thesis, you have a thesis advisor. My thesis advisor was the presenter for the foodie call. So that specific professor. So I got to work with him, get that experience. And then a couple of years later, my friend applied for the PsyD program, the same friend who recommended that foodie call presentation. And when she was applying, she was also looking for thesis advisors too. And she ended up having the same thesis advisor as I did. So it's really interesting to look at it how that whole role played out getting to where I am. Actually, I should clarify on the last part. So, getting into the master's program, finishing, there was a job posting that got sent out to my classmates and I because they were hiring internally first before externally. I applied, I got the job, and I have been there since. And I think um, employment wise, experience wise, academics wise, I think that was just a big accomplishment tied into one experience that was just very linear throughout, and it's just gotten to where I am today.
Awesome. So those are greatest accomplishments, biggest regrets. Thank you for sharing that. So just transitioning just into this topic just a little bit, since you mentioned it before, how you, well, one, you are capable of going to, like, going out on your own, right?
Yeah,
So you went to a club.
I did.
So talk about that experience and how you're open minded to the world of EDM.
All right, so I'm actually not going to say the full story of how I got into how so it's actually house music, I would say. I think it still could be categorized under EDM, but if we had to specify the genre, it is house music. I won't go into specific details about how I got into it because yeah, there's a reason behind it, but I can tell you off stream.
Okay, okay.
But long story short, I got into house music and I was on Spotify making a playlist. And what happened was that when I listened to this first song, I just fell in love with the vibe of it. And then eventually I let Spotify just recommend me some songs that are of in the same genre. And I started finding more and more music and I just incorporated it into my life and just listening to it. And eventually over time I kind of thought it was interesting because I don't listen to EDM music that much. I do listen to more like K-pop, K-R&B. But it was interesting to experience all of this, the house music, deep house, and whatnot, and letting Spotify build that playlist for me based on the suggestions from the algorithm. Over time, I started noticing that I was putting in music a lot from a singular artist, so I looked them up. His name is Yotto, by the way, Yotto. He does deep house, I think techno too. And so I was just looking him up with his music, and I was like, I really like his overall thing. And then later I found out that he was going on tour, and I was like, should I go? And then the thing is, look, he's a DJ, okay? He plays at nightclubs. I personally don't like nightclubs that often. I just being in that environment, it's a lot. Like
Yeah.
loud music playing, lights flashing everywhere, people dancing everywhere. I think this is where the introvert in me comes out. It's a lot of social battery to expend.
Eternally
So I was
screaming.
hesitant. I'm sorry?
Eternally screaming at that
Yeah,
moment.
internally screaming, I agree. So I was like, what do I do? I was a little bit of in cognitive dissonance. So eventually I was like, you know what? I don't know when I'm ever going to see this guy perform on a tour or at a club. And I just went. I just bought the ticket. I did find out later that my friend was also going to be at this event, but we didn't plan to go to this event together or anything. We just, knew we were going. We did meet up, and I was scared at first, but then I kind of was just in my own head. So I had talked about this earlier too with the spin cycle thing where I tend to be just so focused on my own head, my own mind space. That's how I was with the club. I was very hesitant going at first, but I'm actually glad I went. I know I was telling about all this stuff to my friend. I was so inexperienced. That was my fourth time ever at a club. When he was telling me that like, yeah, the opening act goes on at 11:30, and then Yato is not gonna come on until 12:30. And I was like, what? What?
Uh-huh.
Because my bedtime is at 10:30. That's my normal bedtime, but that was an exception for that night. And so I just went. I danced. I didn't drink nor do any substances actually. So I was actually surprised
Sober.
I was able to do it entirely sober and just be in my own headspace and just enjoy the moment. I could have danced with people around me, but again, I was like, I guess externally I was very extroverted, but internally I was just so focused on myself, I didn't pay attention to anybody. So really, what led me to just being in that club is I just didn't want to miss out on an opportunity to not see him again in the future. And then what transpired after was, so he finished his set at 3:30, and then the crowd was like,
Jeez.
play more." So he played another hour, finished at 4:30.
Oh my god.
And
That's
then I also called an Uber that day because it was in West Hollywood, by the way, just to clarify, in the distance. So I was like, okay, no, I'm not driving here. So I called an Uber. I got home at 5 a.m. And then when the Uber dropped me off, I look at the sky and I'm like, the sun is coming out. And then ever since I was like, never again. Oh my god.
dang.
Actually, no, I wouldn't say never again. Opportunity depending. But yes, so that was my experience going to the club by myself. And I was just really shocked that I would do that because I would never do something like that back in the day. But now I did. And bringing it back with the whole genre of EDM and house music, yeah, I really like and enjoy house music. There was one point where I did think it was leaching into melodic techno. But I did put my playlist through an analyzer, and it's analyzing it broadly as like melodic house, deep house, progressive house.
Nice,
But
okay.
regardless of those subgenres, it's just house music overall.
So that was the interesting first experience, but it makes you also open-minded to actually go to a rave though, right?
I couldn't believe that it actually did. And that's for everybody to be aware. I have never been to a rave. I never saw myself going to a rave, but I think going to that club and just enjoying myself really opened it up. So I'm actively looking for a rave of which one to go to if I were to think about it, but I also want to think about it.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
personality is pretty reckless, so I just want to make
Impulsive.
sure yeah, actually, impulsive sounds better. I just want to make a careful decision before I do anything. I was actually this close to going to LID, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was just like, fuck it, it's right there.
Uh-huh.
I could go, but I just didn't because I was like, no. The music they play, I think. Can you remind me what type of music do they play at LID again?
A lot of melodic dubstep.
Okay. I'm not into dubstep as much. So I think that's the reason why I was like, just be smart about your spending, but most importantly, your decision and rationale for going. Just so I think that's why I didn't go in the end.
In due time. In due time.
Yeah.
Would you rather go alone to your first event or would you rather go with like a group of friends? Yeah.
Uh, I think it would be a better idea to go with a group. So that way I'm surrounded by people who know what they're doing and
Yeah.
I'm with the group of people to be safe. But I could also see myself going by myself because I could just see it happening.
Yeah. Understood. All right, hopefully one day.
Yeah, hopefully one day.
So let me know when you decide to pull the trigger. That'll be interesting to just like hear about and everything.
I know. When the day that it happens, it's gonna be like, I finally made it to that line.
Baby raver.
I know. And then I'm gonna have my first plur experience.
Oh yes, yes. I'm sure you've heard about it and everything, but like to experience it is different.
Yeah, plur. Um, please love us rationally. I'm just kidding.
What
Peace,
the?
love, unity, respect.
There you go. There you go. When you
Yeah,
go to your first rave, remember that.
yeah. I will say, I know it's not a rave, but the Coachella lineup came out.
Oh yes, and it has a few artists up there.
Yes, so uh going back to music, I am a big fan of Lady Gaga's music. She's headlining again.
Considering it, Coachella.
I was considering it, but I also had to think like it's an all-day event and it is happening in April. But I don't know what my timeline is looking like in April, and she's only playing on the Fridays.
Okay.
And I know that's typically like a work day, so I do want to I'm just unsure. I think there is a chance I likely won't go, but it was a thought that came into my head.
She like one of your favorite artists?
Yeah, I have actually listened to her since she first came out, so I've been following her since then.
Oh. Okay. Before I get to my last few questions, do you feel like there's anything in particular that you wanted to talk about?
We could talk about our love life together in the future from now on this point.
I had a feeling
Yeah,
like the Riz like line was it was on the way. It was bound to happen. Like I'm setting myself up.
I know you do. And I know you were just saying a few last questions, which kind of makes me sad because I did have a intention in my head of what was going to happen because I wanted to count down like actually no, that's what I wanted to mention maybe. I initially thought, okay, I'm going to try and rizz him up. When am I ever going to get this chance again?
What the
And so I thought, okay, to make the Riz of the Riz, I'm going to try to Riz him up 69 times. I
69
have
times?
yeah, I have been keeping track and then I stopped counting after okay. I stopped counting
69
after the
times
first
is crazy.
I stopped counting after the first one. I marked it down and I just
you're,
forgot
you're
since.
good. You're in the zone, talking about
I
life and
know.
experiences and stuff.
Yeah. But in terms of like actually other serious topics or any topics to talk about, um, wait, Cherry, whose skin is glowing? Wilson's, right? Because he's glowing. Um, and other serious topics to talk about? No, I just kind of came in and just thought like,
Go with the
whatever
flow.
questions are posed, yeah, just go with the
Yeah,
flow. Like I would say I'm a pretty expressive and open person.
yeah.
Talk about certain things. I actually will say I'm surprised by how I carried myself in some of these topics because I've actually never really opened up about them before, publicly or privately even. So it was a good experience for me overall. So any questions, I was just really open and receptive to it.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So, what was your first impression of me online, if you remember like how everything went, and then in person, and then if you can just like describe me as a person, in your words.
My perception of you online. I just remember, I think I can't remember the first stream I ever watched from you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if it was one of those charity streams or if it was a stream where you were just chatting with everybody in stream. Um, but if I had to say, I just think like, wow, this guy's like talking to people. He knows a lot of people. There's a bunch of people here. Um, and then I remember one of the first times I interacted with your chat was when you were having a talent show. Like I remember seeing Ian sing, which by the way, he is a freaking good singer. You hear him,
Yup.
Ian? Like
That's right, hun
one of the best,
cutie.
one of the best voices I've ever heard. Um, but the other person, Kez, when she was singing. Okay, so here's the friendship that Kez and I have. I'm always messing with her,
Uh-huh.
like trolling her and all of that. And I just remember she was singing a song, and I was just like, she was singing the lyrics, but I was trying to mess with her because I was hoping she'd see my chat. I was like, "Where are the butterflies?" Something like that. And um, And then I think I had checked out your stream. I also checked you out too. I had checked out your stream a couple of other times, and I was just like, okay, like he seems to be like a very social person. And so I remember following you, and then since then, again, you were very sociable. You knew so many people. You talked to many people. I was like, okay, this guy's easy to talk to. So I just started inserting myself into chats. Um, oh, Maple, since you're here, I know you're rating. Guess what I did? I printed out a picture of Thomas. Okay, that's a story for
Nice.
another day.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an inside joke with this. Don't worry. Um, I just started. I inserted myself into your stream and just chatting. Actually, now that I think about it, I think because I recognized that you had so many people talking to and shit, I was like, how am I gonna make him remember me? And so I think that's why I started rizzing. Maybe if I had to think of a
Okay, the
reason why,
lore of how it all began. All right.
probably, probably. I mean, hey, it worked. It worked. Where was I going with this? Rizzing chat. Oh, your perception circuit. Yeah. So just following you from there, and I think with the one time, the one moment that really just stood out to me, and I remember was, I'm not trying to bring up like past trauma or anything if it's still relevant to you, but I remember that one stream when you got swatted.
Oh,
Is that
yep.
the term?
Yep. Yep.
So I remember when that happened, and that was a whole drama thing, and I was like, oh my god, what the hell is going on? And then I was looking at your Twitter, and I saw like what happened, and you were doing your due diligence in researching um, the stuff like who that potential person was. But what stood out from then was that you were kind of using your platform to inform other people for the greater good and in that community sense. And I think because of that community mindset, that's what really stuck with me and resonated with me the most because I have that mindset too. And tying it together with earlier mentions about like the similarity, I think that's what drew me closer to your chat. So that's why I interacted more because you were using your platform to advocate for safety and awareness. Because online trolling, but taking it to that severity of a level is extremely alarming and just, I would say, very. I can't find the right words to say, but I'm touching the surface when I'm saying it, but like disheartening and scary in the world that we live in. But I just saw that you
Yeah.
were not going to live by that. You would rather use it as an empowering moment to advocate, to promote safety, to inform others, and just trying to benefit the whole community. So that was my perception of you since then. And then when meeting you in person, I do think you are the same how you are online in person. But in person, you are much hotter and sexier. Um, but yeah, I do think you how you carry yourself online is the same as how you are in person.
I appreciate that. That was cool to hear like the details of it and just like your thought process at the time. Sweet. Did you have any questions for me?
Yeah, what'd you think of me when we first met, huh?
That's the go-to question everyone asks, like the impressions and
I know,
everything.
because I always want to know because like
No, nothing wrong with that. That's a
yeah,
genuine like cool question to ask.
yeah.
Um, wait, you're talking about in person?
Any in
Okay.
person, online.
I think it took a while for me to actually like get to know you online because I didn't really, you didn't really stream as much
Yeah.
for one, and I didn't even know you stream like that. And then it was just kind of like whenever you were in chat, it was just like small bits of chatter from time to time. It wasn't like consistent compared to like certain people. So that definitely like took time. I remember just basing you off of like association by others specifically, like maybe Ian, for example. I would usually see you in his chats and everything. I didn't really know much about you. And then over time, that's when like the Riz thing started happening. So yes, you made a point as to which where you made yourself more noticeable in that regard, which is hilarious. But then when it came to in person, I could kind of like gauge and get that feel of what you mean, how you could be considered as extroverted from the outside, but then you're actually introverted. I get that. I actually felt that vibe, like just talking to you and like getting to know you and everything. But I thought it was like a really good time because I felt like you were still very open from the beginning and just like pretty honest and just like open to like talk about yourself. And I learned a lot from like the first meeting, and it was cool that you were able to fit in with like the other friends too, because it's not like they hang out with each other a lot either, but
Mhm.
it just felt like a group of friends coming together, even though like not all of us are like very well known to each other. So it was like good vibes and everything. I remember definitely learning about your a lot about your food stuff. So that was cool because I didn't really know what hobbies and stuff you're into. I didn't really see you game as much
I
either.
I
Yeah.
used to. Did I used to play a lot of games? I do play Switch games like Pokemon.
Hmm.
Oh, which by the way, I will say I did try the new Pokemon TCPG game.
Yeah.
I didn't last long, unfortunately.
No, that's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay.
But I do play a lot of Super Smash Brothers. Brothers is a nickname for Wilson. Um, Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. For anyone who plays, I am a Piranha Plant main. One of the few Piranha Plant mains out there, and by I don't know how much you know about Super Smash Brothers, Wilson, but long story short, in terms of tier, Piranha Plant is one of the lower tier characters, but I do find novelty in that because a lot of the times when I play against other people, because Piranha Plant is not played as often, they don't know what to do in those situations. So I always take
Yeah.
advantage of that.
Okay, you're the anti-meta.
Yeah, I would say so. And I also do think another thing that I think about how my personality is carried out with that and how I live my life too is, um, and then it's also interesting with statistics when you think about it. Um, I I think I just want to mention this because I didn't talk about it earlier. But for me as a person, I think I tend to try to live out of the mold, out of commonality that a lot of
Yeah.
people tend to live. Because I just find that if you're still similar with other people, like how different are you?
Your
Really? So that's why
uniqueness.
yeah, I try to be unique. And then from like a statistical standpoint, if anybody remembers like averages, mean scores, all of that, there's this thing called a histogram. It's like basically a curve, and 95% of the people will be in that curve and have commonality with others. But it's the 2.5% on both ends that make up the 5%, and that 5% is the population that is unique from the 95%. So I've interestingly applied that statistical thing to my life, and I've just always tried to live my life being different
Outlier, yeah.
and just not to be the same as others. Just have that uniqueness and anything because that helps to stand out. You know, like raising you in your chat.
It's like you know that you want to like live by that, but you also understand like where everyone's at that have like
Mm,
so much more in common and stuff. You understand
yeah,
their perspectives.
yeah. And I do have a follow-up question for that. Actually, when you asked if I wanted to ask you anything. Of all the Riz I have said in chat, which one has stood out to you the most?
That's a hard question because I feel like they're just very unique to literally what I say, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like one really stood out above the others, but it's just like, oh, they're it's like consistently pretty good though, like overall,
Mhm,
because it's like not anything I've heard of, and it's literally on topic. So it's like two birds, one stone type of thing.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's also the timing. If you're like you're pretty quick with it, that makes it
yeah.
even more entertaining.
I really want to learn more about myself on how I think about these Riz.
Yeah,
Riz is like just straight to the
creativity.
point.
It's like when you come up with concepts and like content ideas.
Yeah, it just like comes out, and I'm just like, did I just really think of that?
Yeah,
It's always so crazy to think about.
and to execute it.
Mhm.
Yeah, interesting question.
See, stood out. Unique question, right?
Yeah, honestly. Was there anything else that you could think of? Because other than that, I asked everything, and I feel like it was good just to like learn from you. And I think that outlier part where you feel like you're living your life and thinking differently makes you super unique in that aspect.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I appreciate it. The only other questions I can think of is there anything? I know like a question that just comes off the top of my head right now
Yeah.
is what's your go-to boba order?
Okay. Go to boba order.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm more dependent on like the type of places, like the chains and stuff. But if I were to choose like a random drink, pretty basic when it comes to like just black milk teas. So and with boba, either that or I would go with, if I were to go with like a fruit flavored drink, it would probably be like a peach green tea or a lychee green tea, stuff like that.
I'll say this as a fun fact. I actually tried to make boba from scratch before.
Like, what do you use? Like starch and every?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Never again. It was too much work for little tiny little balls.
Oh, okay. So it was not successful.
No, it was successful, but
Yeah.
well, actually, so it's successful and it came out properly, but I may have made them too big, so I couldn't suck them through the straw. But also, when you think about it too, the fact that each boba ball I was individually hand rolling, like
Huh?
cutting a small chunk and then hand rolling it to get the perfect shape,
Yeah.
and it's a lot for like a serving. So I think really what I learned from there is just what I learned with cooking too
Hmm.
is if I can take a shortcut, it's okay.
Yeah.
Because my mentality has always been make everything from scratch. Like the other week, I actually made Portuguese egg tarts. And for those who don't know what a Portuguese egg tart is, think of like Hong Kong style egg custard tart. It has the pastry shell, egg custard in the middle. It's baked in the oven. But the Portuguese one is different in that the shell is like made from puff pastry, so it's like very, very flaky and buttery and rich. And the recipe I followed, um, I could get away with making that pastry from using puff pastry that's straight from the frozen from the market.
Mhm.
But I was like, no, I can make it. And I just spent more couple hours making it. So because in my head I'm just always like, I can make it from scratch. Because I think I'm just trying to save money and be a cheap Asian that I am.
Live and you learn, the experience from it at least.
Live
So
and you learn exactly. But bringing it back to any questions I have you for, I have for you. Sorry, I was not speaking correctly there. I can't think of anything else, but if I do, I know where to slide into your DMs, right?
exactly. You can message me on the side. I do have one for you.
Okay.
It's kind of like a maybe like a psychology thought process thing, or at least that's how I'm gonna take it as I ask you this to see how you answer.
Sure.
So you know when I mentioned how I associated you with like Ian, for example, right? And
Yeah.
like when I thought of you from the beginning, like first introduction and stuff. Who comes to mind when you think of like my streams or just like me as a person, just like by association, the ones that you know? Like which names pop up?
I think it would have to be Kez. It would have to be because I think I don't recall how many times she participated in your. I can't remember if it was a charity stream or if the talent show was a charity
So Kez
stream.
is like the introduction.
Kez was the introduction,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So how about aside from introduction, like literally, for example, when I think of you, when I think of yerppyderppy, the next name I think of is literally Hansuki.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who comes to mind when you think of my name that you know of?
I think of my name because I'm next to you, aren't I?
Nice. That was pretty.
Seriously, that just came out again with the
No, that
Briz
was
creative
pretty
mind.
smooth though.
You think of Ian, then you think of me. I think of you. I think of who.
There's no one. It's fine. Just very
I'm trying to.
curious.
I know there's for sure. Actually, two people. It's funny you say Ian when you think of Ian. When you think of me, you also think of Ian. Is that
Huh?
correct?
Yeah.
I also do think of Ian from you because I found out about Ian from your stream.
Nice. Okay.
But also I'm gonna add Jarrell too because
Oh,
I found
okay.
out about him from you.
So your mindset was to think of who I helped you become associated with.
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's where you went with it. Got it. Got it. Which is valid. All right.
But
Well,
even though that's where my mind went, I still always went back to you.
just gotta like squeeze in like a few more, huh?
I know I didn't reach a 69, but hey, I did some amount,
just
and
just
if
round
anybody's
up.
watching,
Just round up to 69, like how
okay,
you're rounding your age down to
I'll be
24. You know.
like I'm so bad with rounding. I remember one time I went out to eat uh
Oh
dinner
God.
with my friend.
How about the tip and stuff?
So she said I think it came out to like let's say $68.78,
Uh
something
huh.
like that. Oh no, sorry. 68.24, right? She suggested like, "Oh, do you want to make it flat?" I was like, "Okay." So when she meant flat, she meant rounded up to like a flat number.
Hmm.
Tell me why I thought so she meant rounded from 68.28 to $70.
Yeah.
I rounded it to $68.50.
Well, it's just two people, right?
Yeah, and then I was like, she just looked at me and like, Michael, no. What are you thinking? I'm like, isn't that flat? And she's like, no, flat is like even numbers throughout. Like when I say even, like complete like 60,
Hmm.
61, 62, 63. So that way it ends flat with the two zeros after decimal. But that wasn't my thought process.
Technically, you're not wrong though, because
Yeah.
it really depends on the way you think versus like you guys were just not on the same wavelength right there.
No, but I bet you and I are.
Hey, yeah, I
Bit
might have.
more.
I don't know if I would have done the same as you specifically, but I don't think it's invalid to not go with the 70.
Yeah, but that was just an interesting story about the rounding thing. But yeah, so everybody, I am going to be 24 again.
Woo! As I am always 21 again every year. So
Exactly. We're still in the dating ranges, right? Acceptable range.
I'm not gonna get into that part. I'm gonna stay out of that. But okay, with that being said, what are you planning to do after? Are you gonna head to bed or you sleep
I'm probably
early?
still gonna. I'm gonna still stay up, but I am gonna do my bedtime routine. I just
Nice.
I've noticed like well, actually I will add one last thing. I've learned how I live my life can seem a bit chaotic, and there's a lot going on, and
Hmm.
I'm learning how to take care of my body, and such like that. So I never really realized this, but spin cycle can be considered intense. I do it 3 times a week, and so I really need to take care of my body and how it is after. I guess you can equate it to like when you go to the gym and you're exercising a lot, you need to allow your body to cool down,
Yeah.
appropriately. Uh, Chat, you also see Wilson at the gym. You're looking fine. Um, so like I've been incorporating activities to help my body start to relax. Uh, what helps me is so you might have been seeing me drink it. Like I have liquid IV. I have it from this brand called Only Hydration, which I really like. Low sugar, and the flavor I'm drinking is white peach. It's really good. Influencer stuff there for my food Instagram,
Yeah.
I guess. But also what's been helping me just to kind of actually, did I just really say it's been helping me calm and relax? So backstory, I stopped drinking alcohol beginning of this year, okay? And I don't drink as
Nice.
much, but I've been
Happy for
drinking
you.
Thai tea, and this Thai tea has vodka in it, okay? Anyway.
Whoa. Okay.
I know.
Vodka night.
But yeah, just to help relax my nerves and all. But hey, just seeing your cute face helps me do that already. Again, I'm trying to squeeze in more riz right there. But um, I'm just after this, I'm just gonna like do my typical nighttime routine, which is just drink chamomile tea to really help my body just relax and just like turn off my computer, turn off all my lights. Ooh, Wilson, I have to show you this. This is what I wanted to do too. I specifically recorded this for you. Remember when I showed you my room? Okay, I'm sorry, that's out of context. I have for everybody that I have the lights in my room as you
Yeah, I
can
mean, you
see.
talked about it before, especially the one right behind you.
Yeah. So I actually have another one right here that's lighting me up right now, so you guys can see me clearly. But I recorded this one specifically for you, Wilson.
Is it with music? Oh, I see the wall lights.
So I don't know if you guys can see that clearly, but that was an Elenium music, and the lights were reacting to Elenium's music.
Oh, I did not
I'll
hear a
probably
single
send it to you.
thing, but the fact that it's Millennium, the thought counts.
I'll probably send you that video later so you can get a better view of it because I don't know what you can see on here right now, but I'll send it to you later. So I
What
thought
song
about
was it?
you.
What song was it?
Hold on. Let me see. Spotify. It was All That Really Matters.
Ooh, okay. I mean, well, I like a lot of his songs, so that's a good one.
Yeah. In terms of Millennium, I only know 2 songs from him I listened to. Sound of Walking Away. That's a fun fact.
Nice.
The girl who sings on that track, Curly, I actually listened to her music. And that's how I found out about Elenium. Because she did that music. It's
Mhm.
a song. And then the other song I like is Beautiful Creatures.
Oh wow, a lot
Yeah.
from the second album. Okay.
Yeah. So I prepared that just to, again, make your experience with me unique, memorable, and hopefully you had a good time and great time getting to know me as I did getting to talk with you, you hot ABB.
That last part kind of killed me on the inside, but yeah, I appreciate you for being here. Guest number 28 with the Chat with Wilson podcast, yerppyderppy, aka Michael. I don't really call you by your name, so it's kind of weird for like I usually call you Derpy, you know. So
Can I add my name? It's like a two-part name. A lot of people call me Yerpy, but I have been called Yerp.
Mm.
People have also called me Derp and Derpy. You are the only one who calls me Derpy.
Oh, so a lot of people call you Yerpy. Good to know.
Yeah,
Okay, unique right there. So
exactly.
yeah, two-way right there. But
I
yeah,
know.
thank you guys for tuning into tonight's stream. If you guys are watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button and do subscribe. Thank you guys for just being with me to listen to Derpy's story, life story, perspectives. Learned a lot, especially when it comes to like literally just being unique and living with like a different mindset and just like carrying on the way that you do in life. So, do you have any last few words to those who are watching before we wrap this up?
Oh, you're just setting yourself up for that. You know that, right?
Yeah, just one more.
Okay. Um, Damn it. When I have to think on the spot, that's when it's difficult.
Yeah, I mean you could just say bye.
Okay. Actually, here's my phone screen of Wilson and I. He's hugging me.
Photoshop, woohoo, the
Oh,
power.
chat, woo-hoo. And then just for funsies too, because if when when she watches this, I have one of your boyfriend too. Okay,
Let's go solo.
that's it.
All right, thank you guys for watching. Use the exclamation guest command. Maybe one day Derpy will be streaming again, but you know you could at least stay notified by dropping a follow there. All right, but that's it for the Chat with Wilson podcast. Have a good night. Peace out.